The story begins with the fact that 100 years ago, after the return of spiritual qi, it became the most fundamental and important energy in the whole world. Under the influence of this spiritual qi, all living beings began to rapidly evolve in two completely different directions. One path was wild evolution, similar to that undergone by ancient ancestors, which greatly increased their physical strength and endurance. The second direction was spiritual mutation, which focused mainly on the use of energy attacks and magic. In response, people created all kinds of professions related to spiritual qi, such as Spiritual Beast Observer, which now has 37 million followers, and Spiritual Materials Analyst, with 69 million subscribers. At this very moment, the main character looks at his phone screen, which displays a question about what to do if bitten by a ghostly, spiny spider. It also offers to place an order and get a unique chance to win a top-class treasure. Seeing this call to participate, our main character thinks that, personally, none of this really matters to him. Then he quietly mutters to himself, urging himself not to panic prematurely. He remembers the advice to drink plenty of hot water and lie down in a well-ventilated place so that his body does not emit an unpleasant odor as it decomposes. And just at this tense moment, a fluffy cat paw suddenly appears in the frame. Smarty, the cat of 1,000 questions, looks as if he is incredibly hot and completely exhausted by the heat around him. He complains to the main character, Lin Yuan, about the unbearable heat, and then unceremoniously climbs right onto his head, because he has heard that the air is always cooler in high places. Then Smarty opens the window, begins to enjoy the breeze, and happily announces that the wind is blowing. Then reminds Lin Yuan to take his medicine, and the main character replies that he knows everything perfectly well and remembers it. A little later, he goes to his spiritual beings store and begins to thoroughly clean the premises. He says that his name is Lin Yuan. He is 18 years old and owns a small, modest shop. He continues, noting that although people in this world can use spiritual qi to enhance the growth of living beings, to him, it sounds like an impossible fairy tale. He then shows his spirit beings and explains that he has been in poor health since early childhood. Since the age of 8, he has been completely unable to sense the existence of spirit qi. He laments that he cannot even improve his physical condition using spiritual qi, nor can he contract with a high-grade spiritual being. Just then, Smarty notices that one of the plants is about to wither completely. It was a jasmine lily, a low-level creature. Lin Yuan confirms that, as a healing spiritual plant of the lowest grade, it is completely uncompetitive in the market. It is even worse than animal feed. He believes that since the revival of spiritual qi, all spiritual beings have been classified according to their level and quality. Anything below bronze is considered worthless. They are not cultivated because they do not evolve. Just as in the last 100 years, no one has ever heard of the beasts of 100 questions ever evolving. Just then, a little bird flies in, carrying Lin Yuan's medicine, and announces that it has brought his medication. We are told that her name is Yin Yin, and she belongs to the species of soundbirds. Lin Yuan thanks her for this, and thinks sadly about his situation. He reflects that after signing contracts with them, his head was spinning for 2 weeks. Therefore, there is no point in thinking about raising their level. He opens his shop and sits down, full of hope, waiting for customers. But even after an hour, no one comes in to buy his spiritual beings. Smarty asks if people really love to sleep so much, and wonders why it's so empty. Lin Yuan immediately starts calling out loudly to people. He shouts to all passers-by, inviting them to look at the merchandise. A mother and daughter pass by the store and notice the display window. The little girl tells her mother that it is a 100-question beast, just like their kicks. Smarty politely greets them, asking if they want to buy some green vines, but the other cat just mocks him, noting that his fur is so dry and gray. He declares that it is immediately obvious that this is trash that is not even close to his level. Smarty yells back, reminding him that they are both beasts of 100 questions, and suggests settling their dispute by playing rock, paper, scissors. Lin Yuan quickly calms him down, urging him to stop this pointless conflict, and suggesting they go for a walk to cheer him up, since they have no business to do anyway. Smarty cheerfully exclaims, suggesting that Lin Yuan go buy some meat. He reasons that if he had eaten a few more pieces of pork belly, he would definitely have become smarter. And then, in his opinion, he would definitely not have lost that argument. After a while, Smarty cries, upset by what happened. Yin Yin flies over and comforts Smarty, asking him not to be so sad. She says that even if he is not as smart as the other 100 question animals, at least he is cheap to maintain. These words make Smarty cry even harder and louder. Meanwhile, the main character thinks about how great it would be if he could sense spiritual chi. Suddenly, Smarty asks the main character to look to his left. Suddenly, a huge, dumb-looking armored pig rushes at him from the side. The main character wonders what it is doing near the park, wondering if something has happened on the farm. But Smarty, seeing only food in front of him, attacks it, shouting that a mountain of wild pork belly has appeared. Before the pig has time to crush Smarty, Lin Yuan intervenes and saves him, shouting and asking if he is trying to kill himself. The main character thinks it's strange to see her angry, because dumb-witted armored pigs are usually very peaceful creatures. The pig begins to chase Lin Yuan, not falling behind for a moment. Running for his life, Lin Yuan breathes heavily from the strain. He feels incredibly tired and exhausted, feeling even weaker than usual today. Smarty asks if Lin Yuan is okay, worried about his master. Suddenly, Lin Yuan's leg gives way, and he falls heavily to the ground. Before the pig can strike, Yin Yin flies in front of him, shouting that she will protect Lin Yuan. Smarty also flies into a rage. Lin Yuan gasps for breath and thinks he can't lose consciousness now, ordering the others to run too. The next moment, Lin Yuan finds himself in a completely different place. He is shocked and wonders where exactly he is now. A voice calls his name, addressing Lin Yuan. He turns around to look at the source of the sound. Behind him, a large copper ring glows, floating in the air. He looks and wonders if it is the copper ring he lost when he was 8 years old. He remembers that after his blood dripped on it, it disappeared without a trace. The copper ring begins to float slowly toward him. When it touches his hand, Lin Yuan whispers that he can feel it returning. He realizes that the spiritual chi he had been unable to feel since he was 8 years old is finally returning to him. The giant copper ring merges with his hand, and Lin Yuan regains consciousness in the real world. Meanwhile, the pig is still chasing Smarty, who barely manages to dodge its blows. The pig raises its leg, ready to crush Smarty with one blow. Yin Yin screams, begging for something to be done as quickly as possible. Lin Yuan activates the ring and thinks that even with this small amount of spiritual chi, there is too little time for action. The ring glows, and powerful energy suddenly fills his body. Unexpectedly, he begins to see information about the pig, as if he were looking at a computer system interface. Lin Yuan realizes that this is the 3rd level, while Smarty and the others have not even reached the 1st level. He shouts at Smarty to dodge, warning him of an attack from the right. Smarty quickly jumps aside and barely avoids a fatal blow. Lin Yuan thinks that even though he dodged, the difference in strength is still too great. He looks at the ring and mutters that he needs more power right now. He makes a wish, dreaming that the ring will contract with him. At that moment, Yin Yin attacks the pig with a sound wave, shouting that it dare not hurt Smarty. Lin Yuan watches what is happening in complete shock. The light from the ring is exactly the same as Yin Yin's energy. He wonders if they are about to evolve, and if it is because of the power of the bracelet. Then Yin Yin's sound attack hits the pig, but at the same time, it also hits Smarty. Hearing this loud noise, Smarty yells at Yin Yin, asking why her voice sounds much louder than usual. Lin Yuan looks at them and thinks that even if they are both on the verge of evolution, the gap between the 1st and 3rd levels is still too great. He decides that the pig must have a weak spot somewhere. Meanwhile, Smarty continues to run away from the pig, screaming. Yin Yin, worried, asks Lin Yuan what they should do now. Lin Yuan responds firmly, ordering Yin Yin to sing something to attract the beast's attention. The only important thing is that she sings as loudly as possible. Yin Yin nods nervously, then begins to sing as loudly as she can in this situation. Lin Yuan immediately covers his ears so he doesn't have to hear this thunderous melody. But the pig is enraged by Yin Yin's singing, turning its bloodshot eyes in her direction. Seeing this look, Yin Yin panics and runs away. She cries, realizing that her role here is only to give Smarty a break. Lin Yuan shouts at Yin Yin, ordering her to turn around and attack the beast's eyes, because if it can't see, it will stop. Yin Yin agrees and asks him to watch how she does it. But when she tries to use her technique, for some reason it doesn't work. The bird is surprised. Lin Yuan grimaces in frustration, realizing the situation. He thinks that his spiritual power has dried up at this critical moment. He clenches his fist and begs the ring to hold on just a little longer. The moment he says this, Yin Yin suddenly feels the power flowing back into her. Then she spreads her wings and attacks, her feathers cutting through the air, and it is enough to distract the pig. Seeing the opportunity, Lin Yuan shouts to Smarty that now is his chance, and he needs to attack quickly. Smarty jumps off Yin Yin's wings, shouting back that Lin Yuan shouldn't worry. He declares that it is Smarty himself speaking, and he knows perfectly well that he needs to hit it in the nose. He swings his paw and hits the pig right on its sensitive snout, but the pig throws him back with a sharp and violent push, causing Smarty's head to swell instantly. Smarty groans and asks Lin Yuan if they have won the fight. Lin Yuan nods weakly in response, confirming the victory. He says that the boys were simply amazing. And then he falls unconscious, losing consciousness from exhaustion. The pig stumbles and runs away in the other direction. Then it stops abruptly in an instant. A short distance away, a woman is pushing a wheelchair with a lame old man in it. The man notices the pig and wonders what it is doing there. The woman looks closely and her eyes widen in surprise at the sight of her discovery. She notices a lone feather stuck in the pig's body and exclaims, asking if the feather is from little Yuan's house. She quickly turns to the man, making a decision. She tells old Li that she is leaving it to him and goes to look for little Yuan. Old Li nods, then his eyes begin to glow with an ominous red light. He whispers to his spirit being, apologizing to his old friend for bothering him again. The scene returns to Lin Yuan, who is coming to his senses. The boy finds himself back inside the same strange place where he first summoned the ring. He remembers that since he first dreamed of this place, he has been walking here, endlessly. He admits that he doesn't even remember how long it has lasted, but he still thanks the ring for sharing its spiritual power with him in that desperate moment. At these words, the ring begins to respond to his voice. Lin Yuan examines the glowing space, estimating its size. He estimates the area to be approximately 40 to 50 square meters. He wonders if this could be the so-called inner space of a spiritual being. He addresses the ring, asking if this is Mebius's ability. Then a detailed description with characteristics appears before him. Skills, true data, reveals hidden information invisible to the naked eye. Lin Yuan thinks he has already seen what true data is capable of. Wait, it has an exclusive trait that usually only appears at the bronze rank? A normal level spirit with an exclusive trait is very rare. He wonders if it could be a legendary divine treasure or a fantasy breed. Then another description appears, revealing the details. Lin Yuan reads it all and thinks that now he can only contract with first-level spirit beasts. To contract another one, he would have to raise a first-level spirit beast to the 10th level. But even raising low-level beasts is incredibly expensive. With such costs, even a rich man would go bankrupt in a matter of minutes. He is already poor. Nevertheless, he decides that it's better than nothing. At least now he can feel spiritual power again. Maybe everything will change for the better. Then he hears someone's voice nearby. Someone asks the doctor why the guy hasn't woken up yet. Lin Yuan recognizes it as Aunt Zhang's voice. It seems it's time for him to wake up and return to reality. Outside, Yin Yin and Smarty shake him, trying to wake him up. Lin Yuan opens his eyes and reassures them. He says he's fine, and asks why they are so worried that they can't even speak normally. Aunt Zhang says with relief that he has finally woken up. The doctor adds that Lin Yuan's aunt was very worried. He suggests conducting another examination. Lin Yuan waves his hand, refusing the offer, but Aunt Zhang insists. After all, he was unconscious for almost 10 hours. If he is sick, he needs treatment. Lin Yuan sighs and lies back down on the bed, giving in. Aunt Zhang and Uncle Li have always taken care of him, but he won't tell them about Mobius yet. Then the doctor releases his spirit creature, a fish. It is a purifying vibacarp. Quality and level, elite. Healing abilities. After examining him, the doctor says that everything seems to be fine. He says he has to leave because his wife is waiting for him for dinner. Auntie thanks the doctor for his help. As soon as he leaves, Uncle Li's spirit brings Lin Yuan his dinner, informing him about the food. Aunt Zhang tells Yuan that Uncle Li prepared this nutritious meal especially for him. She jokingly adds that if he doesn't appreciate it, he shouldn't eat it at all. Lin Yuan quickly accepts the food, not daring to refuse. The pets sniff the food and say that it smells wonderful. Looking at Uncle Lee's spirit creature, Lin Yuan realizes that the fearsome rabbit has always been quite mysterious. He is not as fast or agile as other rabbits of his species. Deciding to check, he activates true data, but what he sees shocks him. Everything is in question, but he has two exclusive traits, and more importantly, he is not the terrible rabbit at all. The next morning, Lin Yuan went for an early run. After a while, he stopped, breathing heavily as he could no longer continue running. He thought to himself that since being discharged from the hospital, he had been running for an hour every day, but he admitted that such exercise was still too intense for him. Since he did not have spiritual qi, he had to train his body from scratch since childhood. He wondered if he should give up martial arts and consider a career related to peaceful life. Just as he was deep in thought, Uncle Lee and Aunt Zhang approached him. Seeing him jogging, Uncle Lee remarked that Yuan had been training since early in the morning. Lin Yuan responded with a smile on his face. He confirmed that he was just trying to keep himself healthy. Then, unnoticed by them, he scanned Uncle Lee's leg, and the data appeared before him. Name: bone-eating worm. Source: rotten bone worm. Seeing this, Lin Yuan thought grimly about the situation. He knew that the rotting bone silkworm burrows into the flesh and sacrifices itself to form bone-gnawing gangrene. The fact that Uncle Lee had sealed such a dangerous toxin in his shin for all these years meant that his level must be at least king rank. If that was true, then perhaps that fearsome rabbit was the same, seriously injured and hiding his form while recovering. When Uncle Lee and Aunt Zhang were about to leave, Aunt Zhang reminded him to call if he needed anything, and asked him not to try to handle all the bills and work on his own. Lin Yuan smiled in response to their concern. He asked his uncle and aunt not to worry about him. He was grateful that Uncle Lee had looked after him for so long in Shaosi. He just wanted to find a way to heal his trauma, but he admitted to himself that he didn't know if he would ever be able to do so. Later, he arrived at his spiritual creature shop and scanned one of them. Looking at the data, he blinked in surprise. He wondered about the elite quality, remembering that it had been normal yesterday. He didn't understand how it had improved, and came to the conclusion that his spiritual qi wasn't just flowing away, but was being directed into the spiritual beings, allowing them to evolve. Excited by this discovery, he clenched his fists. He decided to try again, this time increasing the difficulty and using the healing type, Lily Laroru. A note with information appeared next to the green vine's profile. When Lin Yuan poured spiritual qi into it, the creature began to glow and evolved. Seeing this, Lin Yuan's eyes lit up with excitement. It became elite and acquired a skill, its value increasing at least tenfold. He cheerfully called his pets. He ordered Smarty and Yin Yin to stop sleeping and come to him to see it. Yin Yin flew over and told Lin Yuan that she felt like they had leveled up. Smarty jumped onto Lin Yuan's shoulder, proudly rubbing against him. Both of them had indeed leveled up. Smarty puffed out his chest with pride in his abilities. He had become 30 times smarter. Then he scanned Yin Yin. Yin Yin chirped that her singing had gotten much better and sang a note. Seeing how they had both evolved, Lin Yuan couldn't help but smile broadly. On top of that, he had a cheat for infinite money. He anticipated that they would now become incredibly wealthy. Yin Yin tilted her head and asked what a cheat code was. Lin Yuan froze for a second, then thought that it was much more than just wealth. He knew that the evolution of spiritual beings was incredibly complex. Most beings needed a creator, who uses precious materials and spiritual medicines for only a slim chance of triggering evolution. But he could do it alone, without anyone's help. He realized that this was an incredible ability that people would kill for. He understood that if he wasn't careful, he would become a huge target for everyone else. He couldn't protect himself from serious threats yet. This secret must never come out, or it would be the end of him. To use this power safely, he needed to slowly become the creator. Just then, Smarty called him, drawing his attention. He shouted that Lin Yuan's phone was ringing, and that it was a call from Little Chi. Yin Yin brought him the phone. Immediately, Gigi thought and remembered that it was time for Chi's first contract with a spiritual being. He answered the call, and her cheerful voice immediately came through the phone, calling him brother. She said she hadn't called for 2 days and asked how he was feeling. He replied that he was feeling much better. He added that he was even planning to clean up the backyard today. Zhao Qi screamed into the phone, indignantly asking what he was talking about. She reminded him that he had no spiritual qi to support him and asked what he was thinking. She strictly forbade him from touching the backyard until she returned home. He chuckled quietly in response to her concern. He assured her that he was just doing a little cleaning because her older brother wasn't that weak. He reminded her of their promise and asked her to focus on her studies at school and not waste her talent. She replied softly that she knew that. Hanging up the phone, she whispered to herself a promise to her brother not to let him down. Then class began at her academy. The teacher addressed the students with an important speech. Soon, they would all sign their first contracts with spirit beings. And although the grade and quality of the spirit being are crucial, one's own professional level also affects combat effectiveness. Each combat profession has its own compatibility range. If you choose a spirit being that does not match your affinity, the contract will be very difficult and may even damage your mental strength. Even for peaceful professionals such as craftsmen or observers, a deep understanding of spirit beings is necessary for the proper fusion of spirit materials. And since their class focuses on training combat-type professionals, they must carefully consider the synergy between their beings. After the lesson ended, the students began to disperse. But the teacher stopped Xiaozi, asking her to stay behind. She frowned slightly, expressing concern. The teacher asked if she was really sure about the spirit creature she wanted to contract with. She added that she knew about her family situation, but her talent was exceptional. She reminded her that the Federation's 100 Sun selection would soon take place, and she couldn't miss this chance. Zhao Qi hesitated, trying to respond to the teacher. Before she could finish her sentence, the scene returned to Lin Yuan's shop. Lin Yuan was working diligently, improving the spiritual beings. A few hours later, he finally shouted with joy. He exclaimed that he had finally done it and completed the task, upgrading 300 lilies to elite grade. 20,000 coins in his pocket. That should be enough to buy a high-class spirit creature for Zhao Qi's contract. Just then, his phone rang. He frowned when he saw the unknown number. He thought it might be a new customer and decided that the timing was perfect. He was just about to finish work for the day. The guy answered the call, asking who it was. A woman's voice came from the receiver. She shouted and asked if he was Zhao Qi's guardian, and if he knew that she was planning to sign a contract with the Gray Beetle. She indignantly asked how she could waste her incredible talent so foolishly. Lin Yuan's expression changed at these words. He thought of the Gray Beetle, a normal-level creature that could be bought for 200 coins. No one signs contracts with it. They are only good for food. The woman continued her speech sharply. She said that Zhao Qi's affinity range covered all defensive-type spiritual creatures. She was the most talented in the city. She stated that her guardian must prepare an elite-grade defensive-type spiritual creature for her first contract. Lin Yuan quickly responded and thanked the teacher, promising that a suitable being would be sent to the school within 2 days. After hanging up the phone, he muttered his thoughts. He repeated the words, elite grade, and realized that he would need at least 100,000 Federation coins. Time was short, and he had to hurry. Then the scene shifts to the next day. We see Lin Yuan, who looks completely exhausted. After directing spiritual qi all night long, he feels completely drained, but he managed to finish the job just in time. He notices that the spirit creature market is a strange place. He decides it's better to hide the ring just to be safe. Smarty is sitting on his head, and Lin Yuan addresses him. He asks Smarty if he really wants to go with him. Smarty proudly answers his master's question. He declares that of course he wants to. In addition, he reminds him that bargaining is the work of a beast of 100 questions. Lin Yuan sighs as he looks at his pet. He thinks that since he evolved, he has become so stubborn and disobedient. Just then, a horse-drawn carriage pulls up. The coachman shouts, announcing the arrival of the transport. He asks all passengers to wait behind the yellow line. Seeing the carriage, Smarty tilts his head in confusion. He notices that it looks a little different from the buses he knows. Lin Yuan smiles at the cat's remark. After all, Smarty has read history textbooks, not modern transportation guides. He reminds Smarty that a century after the revival of the spiritual chi, spiritual beings began to replace many of the old steel machines. He climbs into the carriage, preparing for the journey. The coachman warns the passengers. He advises them to hold on tight. Then he cracks the reins, setting the carriage in motion. And the carriage rushes forward so fast that Smarty almost falls. Lin Yuan catches him just in time, saving him from falling. The coachman laughs as he looks at them. He asks if the little brother is also going to the spirit market, and notes that he has chosen an excellent day for it. Lin Yuan asks a counter question. He asks why that is, and inquires if a new batch of spirit creatures has arrived. The coachman answers the passenger's question. He asks if he has seen the news that a few days ago a spatial rift opened about 30 miles from Xiang County. According to him, it took Violet Thorn's guards 2 whole days and 2 nights to track down all the aberrant insects. They had to work hard to stabilize the area. He adds that the guard squad is said to still be in the vicinity. Lin Yuan is stunned by this information. The coachman continues his story. He says that the rift opened right next to the spiritual creature breeding base. Most of the creatures there were killed or injured in the incident. The surviving staff are now selling the injured creatures at the market. Hearing these words, Smarty suddenly remembered something important and hurried to share his thoughts. He realized that this was how that clumsy pig managed to escape. The cart driver couldn't help but laugh sincerely. He added that an incredible number of them had escaped. Yesterday, he bought one, and his family enjoyed eating it. They carefully hung the remaining pieces to dry for future use. Lin Yuan gave a thumbs up in approval, expressing his admiration. After a short while, their small group finally arrived at the bustling market. Here, he thought, he would be able to buy some interesting creature at a lower price. The smart guy asked what kind of spirit they were going to buy and what their budget was, to which Lin Yuan gave a comprehensive answer. Elite rank, defense. As for the price, he assumed it would be at least 100,000 Federation coins. The smart guy's ears twitched nervously at the amount he heard. They only had 20. That's why he planned to trade the green vines and Lily Laura, which he had managed to improve the night before. The little beast calculated that even selling 24 plants would not cover their needs, and they would still not have enough money. Walking along the rows, Lin Yuan examined the stalls and wondered if these plants were calling out to him, because he could clearly feel which spirits he was drawn to and which he was not. He noticed a pattern. The brighter they glowed, the more friendly their aura seemed. Was his spectrum of kinship really that broad? After all, his compatibility with healers and support was high, and the plant spirits seemed completely familiar to him. Chi's kinship was with protection. However, at that moment, Smarty was already bargaining enthusiastically with the shop owner. He had knocked the price down from 80,000 to 60,000. Meanwhile, Lin Yuan carefully scanned the creature on display. A rabbit with tough skin. The creature's rank turned out to be elite, and its type was classified as purely defensive. After reviewing the characteristics, Lin Yuan hurriedly grabbed Smarty in his arms. He began to apologize profusely and awkwardly to the merchant. The animal was indignant, not understanding its owner's actions, and boasted that with enough persistence, it would have definitely gotten the goods for 20,000. Lin Yuan whispered to his pet, asking if it had ever heard of the rule to check other shops first. And then they continued on their way. Soon, the next spiritual creature caught their attention. But Lin Yuan shook his head in doubt, rejecting this option. This turtle was slow and took a long time to move. Soon, their search was rewarded with the discovery of another candidate, a clawed fox. Lin Yuan let out a heavy, disappointed sigh. It was no different from the rabbit, and it seemed kind of cowardly. The little animal suggested returning to the rabbit, but Lin Yuan shook his head. He was determined that they must continue their search. The young man understood that this choice had to be approached with the utmost prudence and careful consideration. After a while, his wandering gaze caught sight of a very unusual sheep. The creature was impressive, already at the 6th level of the elite rank. Perfect quality. The young man was delighted to think that this was a specimen of perfect quality, and one with the ability to control spiritual beasts. Lin Yuan's eyes instantly lit up with genuine interest. he turned decisively to the owner of the shop. The young man offered the man 100,000 for his sheep, to which the stunned seller asked him to wait while he consulted with his wife. The clever man leaned toward the owner and said that he had seen one for 50,000. Lin Yuan replied that this was exactly how genuine buyer sincerity was demonstrated. After finishing the conversation, the man announced that the price would be exactly 120,000 and that he would not budge an inch. Lin Yuan's face instantly darkened at such insolence. The young man said with disappointment that it seemed there were no more decent protective spirits in the area. The pet was glad they hadn't bought the sheep, but admitted that for Chu Si's sake, they could have even overpaid. Just then, the merchant shouted that absolutely all the spirit beast meat had been sold out. The man offered his sincere apologies. People were outraged by such a quick sellout, and someone pointed out to the owner the seriously injured beasts still inside the pen. The buyers demanded that they be slaughtered for meat, and at these words, Lin Yuan's eyes suddenly lit up. The phrase about the wounded spirit beasts was clearly imprinted in his mind. The smart guy sensed something was wrong. Meanwhile, attention shifted to the tired merchant inside the shop. He confessed to the crowd that he sincerely felt sorry for these poor, crippled creatures. He invited anyone who wanted to come inside and take a look at the remains of his living merchandise. The crowd of onlookers just smiled and began to disperse. At that moment, Lin Yuan confidently stepped forward. The merchant raised his weary gaze to him. He regretfully informed the young man that the meat was gone and the shop was closing. Lin Yuan said that he had come to see the spiritual beings inside. He noted to himself that the owner's emotional state seemed very unstable. Focusing, he smoothly activated his unique skill of calm mind. Under the influence of this skill, the merchant visibly relaxed. The man kindly suggested that he be called simply Brother Yang. All three animals remained. The man led Lin Yuan away. It stank here, and Yan pointed to two spiders spewing webs, introducing them to his guest. But their abdomens were horribly torn apart. The poor creatures had only a couple of days left to live. Lin Yuan activated the scan, and its level was the usual level 10. But it had skills. If not for the rift, this creature would have evolved to bronze rank very soon. The young man guessed that if the spider had been healthy, it could easily have been sold on the market for 300,000 coins. Yang explained that support creatures that combined control and poison had always been worth their weight in gold. But now he would consider himself lucky to sell both for at least 150,000 coins. Lin Yuan responded to these pessimistic words. He decided to buy both spiders, but he admitted that at the moment he did not have the necessary amount of cash. He offered Yan in exchange for another creature, and frankly told the young man that after selling this batch, he planned to open a new base. Perhaps his offer would not be useful to him. Meanwhile, Lin Yuan continued to stick to his guns. The young man asked what Yang would say if these were elite-grade green vines, causing the merchant to freeze in place. The stunned man asked about their quality, to which the young man replied with unwavering conviction that he was absolutely confident in the impeccable quality of his goods. Yang's eyes widened in shock, and he remembered with amazement that elite-grade green vines were truly a priceless treasure. The merchant announced in a quiet voice that his last spiritual creature was there. He added with pain that they had put their whole soul into trying to save it, but fate had decided otherwise. Lin Yuan wasted no time in scanning the mysterious beast. Stone Rhino, Elite 10. The quality was epic. Lin Yuan's eyes lit up with an even brighter, crazier fire of excitement. Just one step away from bronze rank. The young man instantly realized that there was simply no better option for Chu Chi. He immediately asked Brother Yang about the price of this stone rhinoceros, which caused the merchant genuine surprise. A confident and calm smile played on Lin Yuan's lips. He immediately offered 200,000 coins for it, causing Yang to literally freeze in amazement. The stunned merchant began to ask if the boy really had a way to heal this rhino, or if he had a powerful healer behind him. Yang asked Gigi if he really planned to take all three creatures in exchange for the elite-grade green vines. The smart guy firmly asked Jan to trust him completely. Gigi assured the merchant that the green vines would not disappoint him in any way. Seeing the young man's ironclad confidence, Yan exhaled and said that he was ready to believe the guy's words. He added that since the buyer was taking everything, he could wrap up his trade right now. Then the man took a box out of his supplies and announced his intention to pack the stone rhinoceros and the web-spitting spiders right into it. Seeing such a strange thing, Smarty could not contain his burning curiosity. Yan explained that it was a spirit-locking box, an invention of the famous Ostrich Logistics Company. This technology allowed spiritual beings to be safely stored inside a small space. Umnik was amazed at the existence of such a useful thing and asked why they had never used it. But Gigi said they didn't have the money for it. After that, Yang carefully placed the wounded stone rhino inside the miracle box. Watching such a gigantic creature fit perfectly inside, Smarty was truly shocked. Yang explained that this breathtaking box belonged to the copper rank. He said that the bull would probably never reach the bronze level. After uttering these sad words, Yang summoned his own spirit beast, a fiery lizard with a tumor-like crown. Bronze rank 7. Gently stroking his fearsome pet, Yang broke into an incredibly proud smile. Lin Yuan was completely delighted. After scanning the beast, the young man confirmed aloud that it was indeed a true bronze rank. Meanwhile, Yang was also secretly impressed by the knowledge of his young interlocutor. He had already mastered such research knowledge. Either he was a genius or he was being taught. It seemed that his game had borne fruit. At that very moment, loud, angry voices from neighboring merchants suddenly rang out nearby. The merchants were angry because his lizard had frightened all their animals. Yang apologized and said they were leaving. After that, they climbed onto the back of the huge creature. The shop owner commanded that it was time to set off and ordered them to hold on tight. In the next moment, the fiery lizard took off and rushed forward at an unimaginable speed. Lin Yuan tried his best to stay in the saddle, mentally amazed that this ride was incomparably faster than the jolting of a donkey cart. Very soon, this crazy ride ended right at the door of Lin Yuan's spiritual being shop. The main character slid down onto the hard ground with difficulty, still struggling with severe dizziness after such an extreme ride. Yang let out a quiet, understanding chuckle. Many people felt sick after such a ride. Crossing the threshold, Yang glanced around the room and noted to himself that this place was nothing like the creator's secret hideout. The merchant mentally decided that if the boy's green vines did not meet the stated standards, then business and friendship would have to be separated. However, the moment his gaze fell on the plants on display, he was now absolutely 100% sure that behind this boy stood a true master creator. Unable to contain his emotions, he exclaimed aloud that what he saw exceeded all his expectations. It was top-notch quality. Lin Yuan calmly explained that before the vines evolved, he had generously nourished their soil with additional energy. Fascinated, Yang carefully plucked a small leaf from one of the shoots. Watching the thick, rich juice ooze from the cut, he was amazed at how powerful the concentration of life force was in just one leaf. Suddenly, a memory came to mind. Someone's haughty voice reproaching him for not even bothering to prepare heavenly and earthly treasures. And Yang thought bitterly that in order to receive such help, it was necessary to provide preferred spiritual materials. He needed to befriend Gigi, and just then, Lin Yuan asked if Brother Yang was satisfied with the green ones. They moved on to the price. Yang said that such specimens would easily sell for 30,000 coins. The merchant offered his price of 33,000 per pot and declared his willingness to purchase 100 pieces at once. The animal panicked, trying to calculate how much money the sale of 100 pots at 33,000 each would bring, but Lin Yuan remained completely calm. With a light, friendly smile, the young man replied that the deal was accepted. He rejoiced inwardly, considering this arrangement to be simply perfect. He needed a large batch to raise his rank in his inexpensive spiritual profession. Meanwhile, Yang was amazed by the fact that the deal was truly enormous, yet the boy remained completely unperturbed. Experienced. The man was finally convinced that the simple clothes and tiny shop were just a clever cover organized by the patron behind him. Yang politely inquired how long it would take to prepare the goods, and Lin Yuan replied just as calmly that he would need exactly 7 days. The young man quickly calculated in his mind 1 hour for each pot, plus a couple of days for the delivery of Zhao Zi's spiritual beings, and a little time for rest. Hearing this answer, Yang could not hold back the tears that instantly welled up in his eyes. The man praised the heavens, considering what was happening to be a true miracle. Overcoming his surprise, the young man confirmed that Brother Yang could come for his order in exactly 1 week. Yang grabbed his phone and asked if Gigi wanted to take a deposit for the remaining pots, but Lin Yuan shook his head firmly, refusing the offer. When all the formalities were settled, Yang said goodbye, promising to return in 7 days. Watching him leave, Lin Yuan realized that now the most difficult part of the job was beginning. Then the action moved to Lin Yuan's backyard, where he carefully carried the wounded stone rhino. The animals were not very happy with their new neighbor, but Lin Yuan gently reassured his household, suggesting that they focus on saving the animal's life first. Waiting until they had moved to a safe distance, the young man began to generously pour his spiritual power into the animal's wounded body. Soon, thanks to his efforts, the creature's gruesome wounds began to slowly but surely heal. Noticing this positive progress, Lin Yuan smiled happily. The young man enthusiastically decided to try to speed up the regeneration process a little. He poured in even more energy, but at that moment, the rhino began to let out heart-wrenching moans of pain. Lin Yuan was seriously frightened. The boy panicked, wondering what was happening, and assuming that this could be a barrier on the way to the copper rank, he shouted to the beast with unwavering determination to hold on so that they could break through this wall together. With these words, he released an even more powerful stream of his spiritual energy. Smarty and Yan hadn't actually gone too far. Finally, a deafening roar burst from the creature's mouth, and its body glowed brightly from the powerful energy that burst out. Lin Yuan breathed a sigh of relief, celebrating the success of his plan. And at that moment, a system window materialized in front of him. The system updated the name of the spirit creature to Ironhorn Runox. Its rank triumphantly rose to bronze, stopping at the first level. After that, the system offered a choice of 3 traits: scaly skin, a gait that preserves stamina while running, or pain absorption. The young man pondered the difficult choice of selecting only one of these 3 unique abilities. 2 were good. He reasoned that the skill of tireless stride would be completely useless baggage for a spiritual being specializing in defense. As for the scaly skin, it would certainly increase his basic defense and add a little extra damage during ramming attacks. But still, nothing outstanding. Pain absorption, on the other hand, was a completely different story, as it allowed the beast to absorb enemy damage and heal its own wounds. The young man realized that with such a skill, the spirit would become a resilient and indestructible tank. The young man decided what to take. Looking at the updated stats, Lin Yuan figured that with the right combination of these skills, the beast would turn into an attacking spirit in defensive armor. The protagonist smiled when he thought about how this would be the perfect first spirit for Zhao Qi. No one would be able to get close to her. The smart guy wondered if this meant that Zhao Qi and the Iron-Horned Runex would become a classic Beauty and Beast duo, to which Lin Yuan replied that the girl's safety was more important than any aesthetic considerations. Approaching the smart guy, he smirked maliciously and reminded his pet that he himself was, in fact, a monster. The GG's guesses were confirmed. Along with the Ironhorn Runo's rank increase, his own spiritual power had grown proportionally. The guy figured out a clear pattern. The higher the rank the evolving spirit got, the more powerful spiritual return he got in return. Now he had used up almost all his strength, and he wondered how far a higher-level creator could go with the use of heavenly treasures. When the smart aleck, covered in drool, asked about the method of delivery of the beast for Zhao Qi, to which Lin Yuan, taking out his phone, replied that he would use ostrich logistics. He had a little money and was in a hurry, so it would be a direct flight. As soon as he heard the cherished word flight, the smart guy instantly transformed, and his eyes lit up with joy. Would he be able to fly like Yin Yin? And then a quiet, pitch-black night descended on the city. The action imperceptibly shifted to the palace of the shining moon. Somewhere there, a voice methodically listed the necessary ingredients. The ingredients arrived, and City Lord Lin was there, accompanied by a high-ranking officer. The officer timidly tried to interject, but he was cut off. The alchemist sternly ordered his subordinate not to dare open his mouth without permission. Then all the collected ingredients were thoroughly mixed, and at the end of this alchemical ritual, animal blood was poured into the brew. At that moment, thick clouds of smoke burst out of the cauldron, quickly filling the entire space of the huge hall. Feeling unbearable pressure, the lord and the officer hurried to close themselves off with protective barriers, mentally amazed at the fact that the mere process of creation released such colossal power. The lord realized with a shudder that this power even penetrated her protective spiritual aura, confirming the presence of a true 5-star creator. And then the master creator herself emerged from the mist in the flesh. She told them to summon the spirit they wanted to develop. This is how they met the Moon Empress, one of the 3 legendary 5-star creators of the entire Radiant Federation. The subordinate man, Sikun, possessed royal-level power. And next to him was the Universal City Lord, Lin Yuan, who also possessed this level of power and was pleased that everything seemed to have gone smoothly. Sikun reverently summoned his spirit beast and bowed deeply and respectfully to the Empress. In the next second, the Moon Empress deftly poured the entire prepared mixture directly into the creature's open mouth. As soon as the potion entered, the spirit collapsed onto the stone floor, convulsing violently. Sikun was overcome with serious panic, but the Empress only said that everything was going according to plan. The beast was evolving into the coveted legendary rank right now. All that was needed was to merge one's rune of will with it, and it would evolve into a fantastic form. Hearing these words, Sukuna thanked the Empress and said that he would be ready to serve her until his death. Meanwhile, the tiger-like spirit began its majestic evolution, emitting a thunderous roar amid the raging flames of energy. A tiny rabbit sat modestly next to the Empress, whose forehead was adorned with an elegant crescent-shaped mark. This harmless-looking rabbit glanced at the giant tiger just once, and it instantly trembled with primal terror. The Moon Empress spoke in a soft, enveloping voice. She told Saikun that he would not have to serve until his death, but brought up the subject of the Creator's advanced qualification exams, since they are only held once every 3 years, and participants can only advance 1 level. She asked how, with such a system, it was possible to identify truly talented specialists. The man asked the lady if she would suggest allowing participants to take exams for several levels at once this year, to which the Empress, stroking the rabbit, clarified that only those who passed the first level immediately would be able to try to move on to the second level. The Empress ordered Saikun to immediately go and convey this order to the responsible persons. As soon as he left, Lin Xiaowu dared to ask her question, whether this decision was related to the fact that the exams had not produced any outstanding talents for many years. But the Empress replied that this was not the case, and that the matter was purely personal. After all, almost all of her colleagues had already taken on students, and she could not lag behind these old women. Hearing this confession, Lin Xiaowu was struck by the fact that the Moon Empress herself had decided to take on a student, but then the Empress warned of the approaching spatial tide. The entire city was riddled with insect-like creatures. The woman pointed out to the Lord the need to remain vigilant while fulfilling his duty to protect his homeland and its inhabitants. Each fault line must be guarded, and the Lord confirmed his readiness to become a pillar of support. And then the narrative smoothly returned to Lin Yuan Yu. The young man appeared before us riding a flying spiritual creature. The owner of the flying creature looked back with concern and asked the boy how he was feeling, saying that it would be better above the clouds. The main character felt incredibly nauseous, but he said that everything was okay. The driver noticed that the main character's 100 questions were unusually lively. It's a pity he didn't have time. Otherwise, he would have given the smart guy a ride. At these words, Lin Yuan instantly remembered his Smarty, whom he had left at home. He recalled the scene of their parting, when Smarty had cried desperately, begging to be taken along. Emerging from these warm memories, Lin Yuan smiled faintly and replied to the cabbie that everything was fine. He would take a ride next time. The man immediately happily informed the young man that they had finally arrived at their destination. The main thing here was not to be afraid of heights. Before them was the famous and truly magnificent view of the surroundings of the city of purple spikes. The moon was shining especially brightly that night. Lin Yuan looked down and was greatly impressed by the breathtaking sight. Many people never get to see something like this in their entire lives, but at this mesmerizing moment, while enjoying the beauty, he suddenly felt something extremely strange and inexplicable inside himself. It was a rune of will. He mentally noted that this rune of will was the true embodiment of majestic mountains and endless rivers. What creatures was it connected to? While the young man was lost in thought, the driver, concerned about his sudden silence, asked how he was feeling, and the protagonist replied that everything was fine, and asked how far it was to the city of Red Bar. The driver explained that they would arrive sometime in the morning, definitely before sunset, because the main character was feeling nauseous and had to slow down. Instantly gathering his willpower, Lee straightened his back and, with unwavering determination, asked the driver not to worry about his condition anymore and to speed up. At that very moment, the scene shifted to the academy where Zhao Qi studied, and it was already morning. A huge crowd of students was heading towards the training grounds. Everyone was in shock. Today they were supposed to acquire spiritual beings, but it turned out that the schedule had changed. Most likely there would be practice immediately after that, which did not make those around him very happy. And it was probably also related to the change in the rules for selecting the 100 players for the Federation. One guy confirmed these guesses, mentioning that his friend from a completely different academy also knew about it. At that very moment, the instructor came out and said that today there would be combat practice for first-year students against third-year students. After they received their spirits, they would hold a mini-tournament. At that moment, Zhao Qi's friend said that she was very nervous about the upcoming fights, and asked if the girl had changed her mind about taking the armored beetle. Zhao Qi chose to remain silent, only looking down thoughtfully and gently as she looked at the tiny insect resting in her palm. She decided that she would take it after all. Meanwhile, in the adjacent battle arena, another training match was coming to its logical conclusion. The voice announced the end of the 8th match. The freshman squirrel ran away from the battlefield, and the victory went to the third-year students. Hearing the results, one of them began to shout that it was unfair. Their combat experience was too different, and she turned to Zhao Qi. She was the best in their class and had a chance to win. The teacher officially announced the start of the next 9th training match. Zhao Qi's opponent, a senior who was confident in himself, responded confidently to the traditional question about the participants' readiness. All the students immediately recognized Feng Lixin, whose family had influential connections in the Guild of Creators itself. He was sure to be among the top 100 players in the Federation. Rumor had it that Zhao Qi would also make it, but something was wrong with her spirit. Feng Lixin himself stood in the arena and thought that his recent meeting with people from the community of masters had increased his chances of making it into the top 100 players, and even becoming a disciple of the Moon Empress. He looked ahead and realized that it seemed Zhao Qi had indeed chosen the beetle as her spirit. She had no chance, because her poor family was burying her talent. Despite the oppressive atmosphere, Zhao Qi continued to gaze tenderly at the tiny insect clasped in her palm. She would not give up. Taking a deep breath, the girl loudly and clearly declared her complete readiness for the upcoming battle. However, a cry rang out from behind her, calling her name. Turning around, she saw her teacher, who was pulling a spiritual creature in the form of a yellow-spotted dog behind her with noticeable effort. Coming closer, the mentor said that this elite-quality dog was the best she could get in such a short time. She would not let her waste her talent. Before Zhao Qi could respond, someone above loudly asked them to stop. All eyes turned to the sky, where they saw a huge bird and a man who jumped off it. Finally, Lin Yuan landed in the arena and thanked the teacher for her concern. His sister was in shock. Without wasting a second, Lin Yuan approached her and handed her a box, asking her to trust him and take it. Watching this scene, the mentor said uncertainly that if nothing worked out, they still had the yellow-spotted dog. Hearing this ridiculously absurd dialogue, Feng Lixin couldn't help but burst out in loud, mocking laughter. After laughing heartily, he declared that it didn't matter which spirit they chose. He stated that a worthless dung beetle or flea-ridden dog would be no match for his royal beetle of power, which he had raised since childhood. He immediately summoned it, and the main character analyzed it. The royal beetle of power. First degree, bronze level. The quality was first class. and its skills were strong. After reviewing the characteristics, the mentor realized the full extent of the threat hanging over her student. After all, no spirit they had could withstand it. However, Lin Yuan continued to remain completely unperturbed, with an icy calm. He had a trump card up his sleeve. At the same time, Xiao Qi was clutching the bronze container for creatures, wondering where their family got the money for it. Did Lin sell the store? Noticing his sister's tormenting doubts, Lin Yuan patted her head reassuringly and said that everything was fine. She needed to focus on the upcoming battle. Finally, Qi smiled. She said she could handle it and pressed the button to release the creature from the box with force. She made a solemn promise to do her best so that her brother's efforts would not be in vain. A dazzling, powerful beam of light burst from the open device, from which a huge spiritual creature appeared. The contract was concluded. The surrounding crowd of spectators was in shock. Confused questions about the nature of this previously unseen beast rained down from all sides. Someone in the crowd noted that the giant's skin visually resembled cast impenetrable steel. It was a huge iron horn rhino bull. Such an epic appearance surprised even Feng Lixin, who, however, quickly recovered and tried to hide his fear behind a contemptuous smirk about the poor family's useless waste of money on this bull. In response to this torrent of verbal bile, Xiao Qi gave her beast its first battle command, and it rushed forward. The teacher was shocked. The bull's horn alone was worth 700,000, and the main character was not thrilled that they immediately began to evaluate him by parts and market value. Meanwhile, in the arena itself, the two cyclopean creatures finally clashed in a monstrous, thunderous head-on collision. Enraged by such stubborn resistance, Feng Lixin said that her bull's destiny was to defend and that it would not be able to attack. He promised to immediately demonstrate to everyone present the true destructive power of an attacking beast. With these words, he immediately gave his pet the appropriate order to act. A giant ram. And it pushed our bull away. The girl desperately asked her armored defender to hold on tighter. The loyal pet obediently braced all four legs against the ground. Watching this stalemate, Feng Lixin realized that the girl was truly talented. They had only just signed a contract, and she was already supporting his spirit with her energy. At the same time, the teacher breathed a sigh of relief, because they hadn't been knocked out, and realized that Xiao Qi had rushed into a frontal attack. She lacked combat experience. However, Lin Yuan, standing nearby, realized that this attack was a tactical test of her opponent. Meanwhile, on the battlefield, Feng Lixin's beetle changed tactics and began to rapidly circle around the slow-moving bull. The students around them did not understand what was happening. Meanwhile, Feng Lixin himself continued to smirk inwardly at their naivety. His beetle ran around, waiting for the best moment and place to strike. And at that very moment, his armored pet finally calculated the perfect angle for an attack. Sensing the imminent outcome, Feng Lixin issued a bold challenge to his opponent, saying that she did not understand who she was up against. Obeying its master's will, the giant insect launched into its most destructive attack, crushing everything in its path. In the next moment, the entire arena was engulfed in smoke, and Xiao Qi called her pet. The iron horn rhino bull that had survived caught everyone's attention. The students recognized it as a representative of the power assault type, known for its ability to kill with a single blow. The experienced teacher visibly tensed and concentrated. Sighing heavily, she realized that even the legendary skin of the rhino bull and Xiao Qi's efforts would not save the situation. Even if the beast survived now, it would fall under the next attacks. The teacher was outraged by the unfairness of the fight between a freshman and a junior, and did not understand the logic of the administration. However, Lin Yuan remained ice-cold and calm, completely in control of the situation. He was confident that the skill he had chosen would allow him to brilliantly handle this critical situation. At that moment, Xiao Qi gave her rhino bull a new decisive command. She ordered the beast to immediately use its special combat skill. In the next instant, the giant rhino bull successfully activated its exclusive ability called pain absorption. The shocked students were stunned, unable to understand the reasons for the sudden healing of the iron-horned rhino bull. The crowd wondered if the rapid healing of the wounds and the sudden change in the beast's aura was its skill. The teacher recognized the pain siphon ability with a joyful smile, calling it a unique and rare phenomenon. She explained that this skill allows one to absorb damage and transform it into pure life force. Lin Yuan proudly watched his sister, mentally praising her skill. He noted that Xiao Qi, despite her lack of combat experience and her first time controlling such a beast, masterfully took control of the situation. Feng Lixin, in shock, shouted furiously that the iron skin did not give his opponent an advantage. He contemptuously called the alien beast nothing more than a stronger punching bag. Enraged, Feng Lixin ordered the royal beetle of power to immediately continue the attack, and the insect immediately resumed its furious assault. The students whispered anxiously, amazed at the royal beetle's unflagging power. At the same time, everyone was puzzled by the behavior of the rhino bull, who continued to stand in place, meekly absorbing all the damage. The concerned teacher asked Lin Yuan about the lack of counterattacks, and clarified whether he was really Xiao Qi's brother. The young man reassured her, reminding her of his sister's talent for defense, and expressing complete confidence in her plan. Attention shifted back to the arena, where an enraged Feng Lixin demanded that the fight be ended immediately. He ordered the royal beetle to put all its power into the devastating skill Ram with jointed horn. The beetle obediently concentrated all its monstrous strength and rushed toward the bull at tremendous speed. Xiao Qi was ready for this turn of events and commanded the iron-horned rhino bull to repel the final attack. At her command, the pet immediately activated the stone horn's skill. The stunned student wondered if the rules allowed the use of the arena's structure in battle. Lin Yuan just smiled proudly, appreciating his sister's ingenious tactical maneuver and her ability to adapt to the landscape. Feng Lixin gritted his teeth in rage, accusing his opponent of using cheap tricks. Finally losing his composure, he ordered his royal power beetle to simply crush her. The huge insect lunged forward again, obeying the will of its angry master. Zhao Zhu confidently encouraged her pet and ordered it to reactivate stone horns. The armored beast instantly used the skill, preparing for the collision. And in the next moment, the beetle and the bull collided in a head-on clash of truly colossal destructive force. One of the students exclaimed in shock that this giant iron bull had indeed managed to withstand such a monstrous blow. The spiritual beings locked horns in an equal battle, trying to outdo each other in physical strength. The students and the teacher were deeply confused. According to their logic, the royal beetle of power should have had an undeniable advantage. The teacher explained that the jointed horn ram was a self-destructive attack that ignored the owner's injuries. However, when colliding with the rhino bull's defense, part of the damage ricocheted back to the insect itself. The mentor noted that the beetle had only developed its attack, which is why Feng Lixin did not expect to encounter equal defense. The students finally realized the fatal flaw in his tactics. Lin Yuan analyzed Feng's tactics, realizing that betting on attack was only effective for quick suppression. He understood that if victory was not achieved immediately, the situation would turn against the attacker. The student happily shouted that the royal beetle had begun to lose ground. The audience enthusiastically decided that luck was clearly on the side of freshman Xiao Qi today. The teacher cut in, saying that it was not luck, but physics. The massive rhino bull was inherently more stable than the beetle in a protracted battle. She added that the owner's condition directly affects the beast and advised the students to finally look at their textbooks. Feng Lixin watched as his beetle lost its balance. Burning with rage and humiliation, he couldn't. With a vicious grimace, the young man cynically remarked that this was normal in real combat, and advised Xiao Qi not to blame him for what was about to happen. The enraged young man ordered his royal beetle of power to close the distance and then deliver a direct blow to the girl herself. As soon as this despicable command was given, the insect jumped away from the bull and rushed straight at the defenseless Xiao Qi. The teacher screamed in horror that such actions were a violation of every conceivable rule. The main character mentally cursed what was happening, desperately begging Xiao Qi to dodge this deadly attack. Before Feng Lixin could do anything, Xiao Qi ordered the rhino bull in an icy tone to strike the ground with its stone horns. The beast obeyed with frightening speed. The rhino's horns pierced the ground with monstrous force, sending chunks of rock flying. The beetle, rushing at full speed, crashed into this barrier with a loud bang. The impact was so devastating that sparks literally flew from the insect's eyes. After that, it collapsed limply to the ground, completely unconscious. The beetle was defeated. Feng Lixin was in shock. The judge declared Xiaoqi the winner. The first-year students erupted in cheers. This was their first triumph in unequal battles. The winner was showered with well-deserved praise. Even the strict mentor smiled, admiring Xiaoqi's tactics and Lin Yuan's contribution. The young man only asked his teacher to loosen her grip, embarrassed that she had squeezed his shoulder too hard in her joy. At that very moment, a happy Xiaoqi ran up to them and hugged her older brother tightly. Playfully hitting Lin Yuan, Xiaoqi asked anxiously where the money came from. She was afraid that her brother had sold their store and was left without funds for treatment, accusing him of recklessness. Lin Yuan gently reassured his sister that he was healthy and the store was thriving. But Xiaoqi looked at him with obvious suspicion and asked if that was really the case. The teacher interrupted them, apologizing for the rush. She solemnly announced that Xiaoqi was being recommended for selection because of her outstanding talent. Lin Yuan nodded understandingly, confirming that they had already discussed this possibility. The teacher explained that the purple ship selection was only a regional stage. The real goal was to get into the national elite at the Shining Federation tournament. She assured him that Xiaoqi had enough talent to get started and promised that the academy would invest all its resources in her development. The forecast was bold. The girl's skills would grow at an incredible rate. Lin Yuan thanked the mentor, promising to personally provide his sister with everything she needed. Xiaoqi responded to the teacher with a respectful bow. The mentor smiled warmly, calling the cultivation of talent her duty, and offered to give the girl a tour of the academy for her brother. Lin Yuan asked about the fate of the abandoned yellow-spotted dog. The teacher laughed good-naturedly and assured him that she would personally take care of the pet. The scene changed, and a quiet night fell. While walking, Lin Yuan reproachfully reminded his sister that he had already told her about his ability to sense energy. Xiaoqi stubbornly declared that she would only believe it when she saw it for herself. She also noted that the purchase of the rhino bull must have cost him an astronomical amount of money. Lin Yuan showed his sister his bank account. Shocked by the number of zeros, Xiaoqi couldn't believe her eyes. Her brother explained that with the return of his strength, he had discovered a rare gift from the Creator, and this money was honest payment for his first orders. Therefore, he told his sister to forget about her part-time jobs and focus on her studies in order to win the selection. He added that he was preparing for the Creator's certificate exam. Xiaoqi's face lit up with delight. Her brother's news seemed like a real miracle to her. Lin Yuan smiled happily and suggested celebrating their success with a luxurious dinner. Xiaoqi clapped her hands in delight and chose a traditional Chinese samovar. Her brother laughed and promised to order whatever she wanted. In the final scene, the teacher gently hugged the yellow-spotted dog and offered it meat buns. The pet wagged its tail happily in response and barked twice. The scene changed. After an eventful meeting with his sister, Lin Yuan once again mounted his spiritual bird and headed straight for his family home. All the way home, Lin Yuan thought about his sister. Rejoicing in her success, he decided to work even harder. After all, he had difficult exams ahead of him that could not be taken lightly. Lin Yuan decided to urgently buy textbooks on the specialties of researcher and analyst. He estimated that the stack of books would be impressive, but Smarty would help him cope with the task in the shortest possible time. Lin Yuan remembered Xiaoqi's battle. Although the damage reflection mechanic worked brilliantly, the real key to victory was her enormous and stable reserve of spiritual energy. Thoughts of his sister's power caused Lin Yuan anxiety. He bitterly admitted that his own energy reserves were still too small to be considered a true professional. The situation was complicated by the fact that the exclusive skill Clock Spread placed extremely harsh requirements on Mebius himself in order to level up. He had to start this long, exhausting journey from the very bottom, namely from the first level of the ordinary rank. While Lin Yuan was lost in gloomy thoughts, the spirit bird suddenly took off in a jet-like flight. Stunned by the maneuver, the young man panicked and called out to the driver, reminding him that they still needed to stop for groceries. The driver sarcastically replied that he was already behind schedule waiting for Lin Yuan, and was now driving at full speed to avoid getting a bad review. Instead of stopping, he suggested ordering everything through StarNet. The ostrich delivery service would bring the goods on the same day. After a frantic flight, they finally landed. The spirit bird looked completely exhausted. Concerned, Lin Yuan asked if the poor creature was all right. The driver waved it off casually. The bird was fine. The trip had been successful, and the cargo had been delivered safely. As they parted, he insisted that Lin Yuan leave a positive review, to which the young man hastily agreed. Impressed by the speed of delivery, Lin Yuan recognized online shopping as a brilliant invention. He firmly decided to open his own online store to rid himself of dangerous and tedious trips to the spirit creatures market forever. The scene shifted to Lin Yuan's cozy home. Crossing the threshold, the young man loudly greeted his faithful pets, Smarty and Yin Yin, announcing his return. Smarty and Yin Yin rushed to meet their master. Yin Yin asked resentfully why he had been gone for so long, and Smarty admitted that they had both missed him incredibly. However, in the next second, Umnik's mood changed dramatically to the exact opposite. The pet suddenly didn't care at all about his owner's long absence. He proudly announced that from now on he was in a state of deep, mortal resentment. Yin Yin tried to calm her friend down, reminding Umnik that she had carried him on her back today. Lin Yuan also intervened, promising to always take them with him from now on. But Smarty remained adamant. He pompously declared that he had every right to be angry for 2 more days, and even the most delicious food in the world would not make him change his anger to mercy. Lin Yuan just laughed sincerely, touched by his pet's childlike spontaneity. To Smarty's great happiness, the young man was prepared for such a cold reception, and had thought out a plan for reconciliation in advance. He took a luxurious gift out of his bag, which he had prepared in advance. He explained to Umnik that this item had been ordered especially for him, as a gesture of apology. The appetizing aroma of the gift made Umnik forget his grievances. The protege admitted that he was physically unable to refuse such a divine treat. Keeping up appearances, Smarty declared that his anger had only temporarily subsided. Lin Yuan nodded with a smile, accepting the terms of this amusing game. The owner promised Umnik that he would buy him the treat every day if he liked it. Hearing this, Yin Yin became agitated, demanding attention. She eagerly asked if there was a surprise for her, too. Lin Yuan presented Yin Yin with an elite green vine as a personal food source. The bird was delighted and, recalling past prohibitions, began to eat along with the other pet. Taking a break from eating, Smarty asked Lin Yuan if he would join them. The young man politely declined, suggesting that the pets continue their lunch. He explained that he had to urgently sort through a pile of delivered goods, but the sight of the towering mountain of boxes gave him a slight shock. Sighing heavily, he admitted to himself that he had not expected such an abundance of things. Smart agreed with the owner. The volume of purchases was indeed frightening. Yin Yin's keen eye spotted an unusual plant among the boxes. Lin Yuan followed her gaze and saw a strange flower that he hadn't ordered. Lin Yuan examined the mysterious flower and found a note. The Lyra Lily was a bonus for purchasing 100 green vines. The young man froze in amazement, struck by the generosity of such a promotion. A sudden thought made Lin Yuan stop. He realized that the bonus plant was a jasmine lily. Lin Yuan scolded himself for his forgetfulness. His ideal partners were healing and plant-type creatures. Realizing this, he understood that the perfect solution had finally been found. Seeing the healing plant, Lin Yuan ordered his pets to guard the elite green vine on the first floor. The clever creature obediently confirmed that the task had been accepted. Picking up Lily Lyra, Lin Yuan ran to the bedroom. Having made his decision, he mentally commanded himself to immediately begin testing the plan. He began to transfer spiritual energy to the plant, activating a unique skill. An order to activate the spiritual blockade sounded in the room. Despite his exhaustion and poor concentration, Lin Yuan continued the process he had started, deciding not to back down, even though his mental powers were in a deplorable state. Continuously infusing energy into the plant, he finally heard the long-awaited notification. a soulless voice confirmed the successful conclusion of the contract. After completing the spiritual block, Lin Yuan was pleased to find that his mental reserves were stable. Now the influx of energy allowed him to begin improving his pet. An hour later, Lin Yuan successfully completed the level upgrade. Lily Lyra reached the first stage of the elite rank and legendary quality with the healing skill. Then his thoughts turned to the main artifact, the Mobius bracelet. Without wasting any time, he opened the interface to check his partner's status. The bracelet's rank rose to the first level of elite, unlocking the Calm Mind skill. Deeply shocked, the hero managed to realize that his rank had indeed increased. Suddenly, Mobius forcefully pulled Lin Yuan's consciousness inside himself. Finding himself inside a mysterious space and looking around, he realized that this was what the famous Mobius space looked like from the inside. His memory told him that it had become twice as spacious. The silence of the surreal place was broken by the voice of Mobius himself. The entity asked if he could hear her, to which Lin Yuan only smiled. The hero confirmed that he could hear his partner crystal clear. With a slight nostalgia, he noted that it had been a long time since their last conversation. This was followed by a block of information about the world order. It was explained that the contract with the spirit beast consumed a lot of mental energy. An ordinary person could subjugate 2 to 3 creatures in a lifetime, 5 at most. But the ability to spiritually block was a unique feature of Mobius. It had the effect of a standard contract, but without consuming the owner's energy. All payment was taken from Mobius's own internal reserves. The contract limit depended on the level of the bracelet, but the price was high. After the merger, Lin Yuan lost his spiritual and mental powers for 10 years. Summing up, Lin Yuan bitterly admitted that, even now, his overall condition left much to be desired. The scene shifted back to space, and Lin Yuan asked Xiao if he had finally gained the ability to speak. Xiao flew up to Lin Yuan's face. Transformed, he shone with a golden aura, and replied that as soon as he reached the elite rank, he was able to speak. Looking around, Lin asked about this place. Xiao confirmed that it was his clock spirit space, where Lin could store creatures and change everything. Lin noticed a pool without spiritual energy and asked about its purpose. Xiao calmly confirmed that there was indeed no energy there. Learning that it was just ordinary water, Lin Yuan scratched the back of his head in confusion. Trying to make sense of it, he moved on to the next topic. Xiao Wu philosophically remarked that water brings wealth. Lin looked at him differently, noting his bright, unique personality. Then, silently and without warning, he threw a stone into the water. The stone thrown into the water glowed brightly. Lin understood that even cheap stones here radiate qi without the losses that are inevitable in the external environment. Xiao Wu confirmed that the space retained qi. Lin was delighted. If he put the best stones here, the effectiveness of strengthening creatures would skyrocket. Xiao Wu agreed, adding that, as the rank increased, the space's operating time would increase. Lin became serious. This would require a lot of Federation coins. Any energy stones were expensive, so earning money became an urgent need. Suddenly, Xiao began to disappear, which greatly frightened the young man. Xiao reassured him that everything was fine. It was just that he could only maintain clear communication for half an hour a day, and that time had run out. As he disappeared, Xiao expressed deep regret over the loss of Lin's spiritual power during the 10 years of their contract. But the young man smiled and replied that it was nothing. Those years had taught him a lot. When the spirit disappeared, Lin smiled and thought that now he had hope again, even though the road ahead was still long. He put the bracelet back on. The real test was just beginning. But right now, the irresistible force of sleep was much more important to the young man. It was another day of hard work. Lin was improving Lily. Yin sang, and Smarty studied the computer. The young man was so absorbed in his work that he did not notice night falling. Surprised by the late hour, he turned around and saw his 2 pets asleep together, and Smarty was even muttering something. What naughty little creatures! Lin quietly went into the next room. Turning on the bright light, he looked at his spiders, and immediately began treating them. Lin was happy to see that leveling up had helped. Both spitting spiders were saved, and 7 days later, Brother Yang stood outside Lin's store, praying to the heavens and hoping to change his life. This time, his bet had to pay off. Opening the door, Yang thought it was unrealistic to grow 100 green crawlers so quickly. How lucky to find a store with a real creator at the helm. It was like hitting the jackpot. When Yang entered, he froze for a second. Then Lin Yuan greeted him warmly, noting that he had been waiting for this visit. Brother Yang just laughed. Yang reminded him with a laugh that he had an urgent need. Lin gestured for his guest to come inside and immediately offered to show him the finished product. The young man hoped that the deal would save his rented base. At the same time, Yang saw many jasmine lilies and beamed. Lin announced that the entire order was ready. Reminding Jan that he still needed 76 pots, he suggested that he simply choose them from among the 100. Crying with happiness, Yang grabbed the young man's hand and began to shake it, shouting that Lin had saved his life. Lin modestly replied that the guest was flattering him greatly. Lin was surprised by such a violent reaction. Meanwhile, Brother Yang asked for the final price, promising not to haggle over a single cent. Lin was satisfied with the previous price. Hearing this, Yang almost cried. He had met a truly noble person with whom he was ready to become friends. Pulling himself out of his thoughts of friendship, Yang froze. An embarrassed Lin called out to him. Coming to his senses, the guest happily agreed to buy all the flowers. After paying for the order and picking up the pots, Yang, who was acting strangely, got ready to leave for the base. He urgently invited Lin to visit the nursery, promising the best products. Saying goodbye, Lin promised to visit. Watching him leave, the young man marveled at Yan's happiness and thought about how wonderful the profession of a creator really was. Returning to the unexpectedly empty room, he decided to replenish his supplies. Then Lin asked Smarty about his progress with registering on the Star Network. Smarty tearfully reported the trouble. Lin rushed to him and checked the pet's status. Now it was a beast of 100 questions of the elite rank with an accurate memory. The skill allowed for detailed data analysis. Meanwhile, the crying Smarty complained that he had gotten fat. Lin thought that it was just his fur fluffing up. Lifting the pet into his arms, Lin reassured him that Smarty hadn't gotten fat, he had just leveled up and reached the elite rank. The cat asked incredulously. The young man asked if the cat felt smarter. The cat proudly declared that it was just his talent. Now he could remember information not for 1 cookie, but for 5. It seemed that cookies had replaced pork as his favorite food. After praising the cat, Lin warned that he would often need his help in the future. Smarty proudly told him to rely on him for everything. Lin asked where Yin Yin was, and immediately heard her cry out. She was calling her owner, screaming that something bad had happened. Lin shuddered with déjà vu. A frightened Yin Yin ran up to him, fearfully asking if she was sick, because she felt like she had shrunk. Smarty cleverly suggested that the bird had simply leveled up, just like himself. Lin Yuan decided to personally check her current status. The status read, Elite Rank Soundbird with the skills Sound Spike and Turbulence. Lin was surprised that both skills were combat skills. She had a wonderful voice, but her skills were not related to singing. Smarty admitted that they had already tested them, and showed a board with a mark from the Sound Spike. Yin Yin timidly confirmed that they had played without him. Smarty suggested checking if her power had increased, and soon the trio went out to the garden for testing. Smarty raised the wooden board high above his head. Yin Yin anxiously warned her friend that he was standing too close to the target and that it was extremely dangerous. Lin solemnly announced the start of the experiment. Confident in his friend's accuracy, Smarty boldly gave the command to open fire on the target. The bird attacked the board. Seeing its devastating power, the cat was terrified. Lin calmed him down and suggested testing the turbulence skill as well. Yin Yin summoned a tornado that tore the board to shreds. Shocked by the unprecedented power for her rank, Lin realized that she had become a true fighter. The scene changed. The courier came to them and informed the boss that the ordered goods were at the door and asked him to sign for the delivery. Meanwhile, Smarty suggested that Lin Yuan test Yin Yin's skill again, claiming that she could break through an iron plate. Lin Yuan took the order inside and objected to Smarty on the way, reminding him that they had already seen this and that Yin Yuan was tired. Smarty complained about his boring skills. Lin Yuan told them to let Yin Yuan rest, reminding his pet that he was a beast of 100 questions. He explained that Smarty would be useful later. The pet's eyes lit up, and he asked hopefully if it was true and what exactly needed to be done. Lin Yuan told him to feed the 2 web-spitting spiders. Smarty fearfully held out a lily to them and asked the spiders not to bite him. Yuan understood that fear of spiders was an instinct of spiritual beings. Yuan reassured his pet, instructing him to record the data on spiritual beings in the store later. From now on, these matters would be handled by Smarty. The bodies of the 2 spiders glowed with different lights, which Smarty immediately noticed. Lin Yuan explained that they were about to increase their rank. The spiders began to cover themselves with webs and instantly hid in cocoons. Smarty was amazed by their simultaneous evolution. Yuan replied that it was like the iron-horned rhinoceros. They had already been waiting to evolve, but had been seriously injured. After replenishing their life force, their advancement was only a matter of time. 2 hours later, the spiders evolved. The system issued a direction: prehistoric reversion. The trait was a fierce poison that made the body and web toxic. The second direction was spiritual mutation, with the trait sticky web to enhance control. Smarty was delighted with such different paths of evolution. Lin Yuan did not expect this, noting Brother Yang's good foundation. Yuan went upstairs, and Smarty asked about sales, mentioning registering the store on the old internet. Yuan suggested taking a look. He opened the computer, and a window appeared for entering the store name, which upset the guy. Why did he have to enter the name again? Smarty explained that he had left it for him to participate. Lin Yuan thought for a moment and entered, Spiritual Beast Store Without Loss. Nickname: Drowsy Old Forest. Smarty complained that the name was old-fashioned after all the trouble they had gone through. Yuan objected, saying that the name meant not suffering losses and not being deceived. It was simple and easy to remember, so it was quite good. Putting away the monitor, Yuan told Smarty not to rush with testing the Star Network card. He was almost done, and asked if he should just scan everything. Yuan installed the card and began the scanning process, which Smarty described as intense. With its help, he scanned all his plants and 2 spiders. When Smarty asked, Yuan replied that scanning the spiders was a priority. Lin decided that he would scan his cat, too, and asked where the pet was going to run. Smarty admitted that he did not expect the GG to attack from behind, but when he heard about the virtual world, he was shocked and asked where this place was. Yuan explained that it was a showcase of the Star Network, which required a complex application and was not a regular website. Smarty was delighted that it was twice as spacious as their home. Yuan explained that the Star Network was a world of real data in the form of a virtual image. Smarty asked why their household items had not been transferred. Yuan hesitated and replied that virtual decorations cost money. Smarty found this reason very realistic, and Yuan agreed with him. After figuring out the menu, Yuan suggested exploring the Star Network community. He pressed a button, the landscape changed, and they entered the virtual world. Smarty's eyes lit up, and Yuan told him not to run. The pet estimated the place to be worth 80 servings of braised pork, then called his owner over to look at something. Yuan saw that it was a furniture decor store. He agreed and suggested they see if they could buy some furniture for their store. A robot approached them and asked what they needed. Smarty was surprised by the talking iron block, but Lin Yuan explained that it was an intelligent robot. Yuan requested 2 flower stands and a counter. He listed their exact specifications. The robot took them to another floor, where Yuan decided not to buy anything yet after seeing what was there. 100,000 for a stand. It wasn't right to spend money like that. Smarty said he would make the furniture by hand. Meanwhile, Yuan asked the robot about the cheapest chairs. The robot led them to the chairs. Yuan wanted to buy at least something for his guests, but when he saw the price of 15,000 for a regular chair, he finally lost heart. Smarty offered a maximum of 1,000 coins. Otherwise, they didn't need the chair. The robot replied that bargaining was beyond its authority, and the friends left disappointed. Smarty acknowledged the failure of the bargain. Yuan suggested forgetting about it, since they had been communicating with a machine, and decided to visit a bookstore. When Smarty asked, Yuan reminded him of their plans to take the creator exam, for which they needed textbooks. They entered another bookstore. Yuan was surprised by the number of books, and entrusted the task to Smarty. He gave the robot a long list of basic and advanced books on spiritual materials and beings. At his request, the robot selected 327 books with a gift catalog. Yuan gave his address and asked for everything to be packed into a knowledge chip for shipping. The robot asked him to sign an agreement that the books were for family use only. Otherwise, the association would punish him for leaking information. Yuan finished his business and smiled. It was time to go back. Yuan thought it would be nice to buy such a smart robot for the store. After teleporting home to the store, a girl stopped him. She shouted, "Wow! I saw you finally show up!" The girl asked if he was the owner of the store and complained that he didn't have a robot assistant, which is why she had to wait for him for so long. Yuan apologized, saying that the store had just opened today and he didn't have a robot yet. He noted to himself how arrogant the girl was, even though she was the same age as Xiaozi. The girl asked the price of the spiders, calling him uncle. Yuan's face changed instantly. He asked indignantly if he really looked like her uncle. The girl walked ahead, asking him to tell her about the spiders and their prices. She also asked him not to quote too high a price. After all, she reminded him, the name of the store was No Loss. Standing behind her, Smarty couldn't hold back his laughter and burst out laughing. The uncle pointed to a spider with thin legs and sticky web. The girl asked disappointedly if that meant it wasn't poisonous. Understanding the customer's request, Lin Yuan immediately moved on to another option. He suggested looking at the big green spider if she needed poison. Yuan explained that the main exclusive feature of this species was its fierce poison. As soon as he said this, the big spider suddenly stood up on its legs. The girl was so frightened by the sudden movement that she screamed and jumped back. Due to her fear, she lost her balance and fell to the floor with a loud thud. The victim groaned, complaining that the floor in the store was too hard. The impact knocked the cap off her head, and Lin Yuan was literally stunned. The customer's head was completely bald and smooth. The guy suddenly decided that the girl's head really did look like a boiled egg, but he immediately pulled himself out of these inappropriate thoughts. He firmly told himself no, deciding that he couldn't laugh at the customer. Yuan reminded himself that he was a professional manager, so he mentally ordered himself to be patient and save face. But Smarty, filled with childlike spontaneity, couldn't control himself at all. He shouted loudly, pointing directly at the bald egg. The girl's face turned bright red with embarrassment, and she let out a shrill cry. Quickly getting up, she dusted off her clothes and pretended to be very serious. The main character grabbed his cat and apologized, saying he was being naughty. Smarty also apologized to the girl. The girl began to defend herself actively, wanting to clarify the situation. She explained that it was a side effect of the treatment for the bite of a ghostly, spiny spider. She confidently stated that her hair would definitely grow back in a few months. And she was definitely not bald. Hearing the name of the rare spider, Lin Yuan sank deep into thought. The ghostly, spiny spider was very unusual. Yuan felt like he had heard this strange and frightening name somewhere before, but the guy couldn't remember where exactly he had encountered it. Yuan changed the subject. He politely asked if it was possible that she really liked arachnid spiritual beings. Hearing this question, the girl visibly tensed up. The next second, she began to shake violently, as if she had just been electrocuted. Lin Yuan asked, "She's a customer, right?" The frightened female customer let out a loud, piercing scream. She hastened to assure the young man that she absolutely hated these horrible creatures. Now Lin Yuan was even more confused than before. He asked with sincere incomprehension why she was looking for spiders in the first place, and even touching them. With a tearful and hurt expression on her face, the upset girl replied. Through her tears, she explained that her magical affinity was with arachnids. Only now did Lin Yuan finally understand everything clearly. He thought that there were sad cases when a person's innate affinity type did not match their personal preferences at all. Ironically, those who hate spiders the most are doomed to make contracts only with them. The young man continued to ponder silently. On the other hand, he noted that the category of arachnid spiritual beings was extremely large. Therefore, the direction of its development was also broad. Most importantly, the treatment for the ghost spider's venom was very expensive. This was clearly the impressive power of his parents' enormous wealth. Yuan smiled wryly. If he had to raise a creature he hated, he would dig himself a hole. At that very moment, the upset girl waved her hand. The customer firmly said no, explaining that the pet she wanted was definitely not here. Lin Yuan asked her to wait, offering either of these two spiders. He added that control and strong venom were very popular for good fighting, but the stubborn girl continued to stand her ground. She flatly refused, stating that the exclusive features of these spiders were too weak. She needed a spider with powerful control abilities. Hearing such requests, Lin Yuan was truly shocked. He wondered to himself, could these two capable spiders really be considered weak? The frustrated and demanding girl finally spoke up. She firmly stated that she didn't care about their basic strength at all. She just really needed a spider whose unique trait was transparent web. Lin Yuan quickly began to calculate in his mind. The manager decided that this young girl was indeed rich and stubborn. Transparent webs were an extremely rare and exclusive ability. You could waste 20 spiders on orders and still not get this trait. But then, suddenly, a bright light bulb of genius lit up in his head. Yuan confidently offered his services, thinking he could handle it. He claimed to know a way to fulfill an order for an epic quality spider. The young man briskly asked the customer how many spiders she needed. The girl looked at the bold manager with suspicion. She asked if he really thought she was a naive child who could be easily deceived, or did he think she would believe him just because of his good looks? Hearing this accusation, Lin Yuan's face flushed red with embarrassment. He was genuinely indignant and asked the customer directly who would want to deceive her. But then, the guy suddenly froze in place. Had this girl really just called him handsome? This sudden compliment quickly filled his heart with pride. The manager firmly decided that he would definitely take this difficult order. Not because of the praise, but because he couldn't bear to see this sick girl suffer. Yes, he decided he was just too kind a guy. However, outwardly he tried to maintain his composure. Yuan calmly said, "Okay," and noted that after visiting 100 more stores, she was unlikely to find the spider she needed. With that, he turned toward the exit, and Smarty teased her. The little guy yelled loudly for the dissatisfied customer to leave. The girl suddenly panicked and quickly ran to stop them. Changing her tone, she hurriedly asked the guy to wait at least a minute. Lin Yuan slowly turned around, skillfully pretending to be detached. The manager asked what was wrong, reminding her that she herself had refused to trust him. After a moment's hesitation, the embarrassed girl timidly asked. The client asked hopefully if he really had a reliable way to get the spider. Yuan said that if she didn't trust his honest words, then there was no way. Hearing this, the girl calmed down and gently tried to negotiate. The customer suggested that they first just add each other as friends on Star Network. She asked him to notify her when he got the spider she needed, and she would buy it. Lin Yuan just smiled to himself at her naive words. The cunning salesman thought it was an excellent step back for a confident move forward. Truly, a classic move in the world of big business. Over the years of practice, he had accumulated enough experience working with such difficult customers. Therefore, the manager refused the deal instantly. The guy coldly stated that there was absolutely no need for such actions. He suggested that she simply return to the store when she wanted to buy something. The girl playfully apologized for her distrust, explaining it was due to the lack of decor in the shop. She promised not to haggle over the order, and Lin Yuan, unable to withstand the pressure, gave in. After that, he himself suggested that they quickly add each other as virtual friends on the network. The salesman and the customer simultaneously took out their personal cards. With a short electronic beep, the network connection was successfully established. When she saw the nickname Dense Old Forest, the girl laughed loudly throughout the store. She was genuinely amused, calling Lin Yuan's username childishly silly. Lin Yuan teased Cloudstream by asking about eagle sharks. The girl boiled over with indignation, taking the joke as an insult, and angrily yelled at the salesperson. Lin Yuan tried to justify himself, but the angry customer caught him in a lie. To diffuse the conflict, he reminded her of a rare order, at which point the important customer demanded that the argument stop. Lin Yuan received a notification that 10 shiny coins had been credited to his account. The wealthy customer smugly announced that the payment had been made and that she was now waiting for good news. Lin Yuan was shocked. The wealthy guest had paid 10 coins instead of the usual 2. Smarty was delighted with such easy profit when he saw the balance in his account. He asked if this meant they would now be rich. The smart guy reminded him that he had long wanted to buy himself an expensive player and sound system. Lin Yuan dampened his friend's enthusiasm. 10 coins was only an advance payment under the supervision of the Star Network. Considering his brother Yang's morning payment, the young man decided to check the market prices for spiders. Lin Yuan's balance dropped sharply from 3.4 to 2.4 shining coins. The young man was shocked. The cost of 5 spiders of the initial elite rank was a whole coin. Smarty panicked and screamed when he saw that his balance had decreased by a third. Lin Yuan bitterly noted that Brother Yan's money had disappeared before it even had time to warm his pocket. With the usual path of cultivation, he would have gone bankrupt on spiritual materials. No wonder the bald girl gave away 10 shining coins so easily. Smarty was concerned about the return on investment, but Lin Yuan reassured his friend by mentioning the new robot. At the same time, the young man acknowledged the need to save money for a future expansion of the storefronts. Smarty reminded him that there had been no customers before and criticized the stupid old robot. Lin Yuan cheered up his friend, urging him to believe in the profit from the bald customer's order. Smarty sighed resignedly, realizing that it was useless to argue with his stubborn boss. The cat went to play with Yin, and Lin Yuan cheerfully promised his friend that he would quickly return all the money. As soon as Smarty left, Lin Yuan became serious. Enough empty talk and jokes. It was time to get to work. The young man decided that it was time for an important conversation with Xiao Yu. In the next moment, the familiar surroundings smoothly changed. Finding himself inside the mysterious space of the spiritual castle of Mobius, Lin Yuan looked around. The moment he arrived, the guy called out. Yuan asked Xiao Yu about the next creature. Mobius appeared and sternly stated that the current approach was fundamentally wrong and reminded him of the need to conserve resources. The spirit insisted on strict financial control, but Lin Yuan just smiled confidently. He agreed with the importance of money, but reminded him that investing in personal power would allow him to earn money much faster. Lin Yuan admitted that he had thought long and hard about the next blocked creature. Having made a firm decision, the young man still wanted to hear Xiao Yu's wise, expert opinion. After listening to these words, the ancient spirit Mobius asked the young man to speak without hiding his bold plans. Mobius prepared to listen, and an unprecedented determination flashed in Lin Yuan's eyes. Taking a deep breath, the young man finally clearly pronounced the chosen name. Goldfish. The scene changed abruptly. Lin Yuan wandered down the bustling street, deep in thought. The young man noted with surprise how unusually accommodating Xiao Mo had been, and his thoughts involuntarily returned to their recent conversation. Xiao Mo easily agreed to the idea with the fish, but warned that because of its appearance, it needed 10 times more spiritual energy than other fairies. Lin Yuan considered this a solvable problem. He guessed that in moments of weakness, the spirit forcibly compressed its mental power to protect its master. The young man considered it his duty to find a way to restore his partner as soon as possible. Xiao Mo just smiled, giving him free rein. Returning to the present, Lin Yuan opened the system interface and decided to try the search function on the Star Network first. The result amazed him. The search instantly brought up a street of shops selling goldfish, although most of them only offered ordinary ranks. Wanting to find elite-grade fish, he decided to filter out the best stores. A massive display window appeared before him, and he stepped inside. Assessing the interior, Lin Yuan estimated the area to be about 800 square meters. It seemed that the space had been deliberately compressed for better display. Noticing the dense arrangement of goods with interfaces, he decided to copy this design. At that moment, the owner, Jessie, approached him. Smiling, she offered her help and a tour, apologizing for any shortcomings in service due to the entire staff being off duty. Lin Yuan was relieved to realize that he was dealing with a real person, not a robot, and voiced his intention to purchase a spiritual goldfish. Jessie led him to a large pool. She explained that all the small fish of ordinary rank cost half a shining coin each. The owner pointed to a large red fish of elite rank for 5 shining coins. Lin Yuan's eyes narrowed as he watched her. The fish lived up to their reputation as energy restorers, saturating the aura. However, the price was steep. A common fish cost more than an elite spider. He couldn't afford to buy the elite fish. Jessen added that it wasn't even the best breed. Otherwise, the price would start at 7 coins. Ordinary fish cost the same due to the complexity of their evolution and the reluctance of masters to take them on. Lin Yuan thanked her for the advice. Jessen laughed and asked him to call her Sister Exion, and added that the choice of a specific fish depended solely on his intuition. Studying the fish, the young man decided that the best choice in terms of potential would be the Dragonite type, capable of awakening dragon ancestry. Putting aside his doubts about his luck, he decided to check whether his locked spiritual space could accelerate the leveling of these creatures. If successful, his store would have a clear main product. In the end, the young man's gaze settled on a slightly silly-looking black fish. Jessen approved of the choice and asked if he needed anything else. Lin Yuan thought that the pool in the space also needed to be tested. He asked aloud for energy ore. Jessen offered a wholesale discount, naming a price of 500 federal coins per kilogram. The buyer offered to take 2,000 kilograms of ore. Hearing such a huge amount, the stunned Jessen literally froze in place. Lin Yuan smiled and presented his card for payment. Jessen hastily promised that the ostrich service would deliver everything to his address. Deciding that she was dealing with a major customer who was buying ore and dragon eyes, Jessie suddenly remembered something and added an important detail. She advised him to buy butterfly shells for breeding fish. Despite the price, they work wonders for promoting fairies. Sincerely thanking Exion for her foresight, the young man paid the bill. His balance dropped from 0.9 shining coins to 0. His heart ached at the sight of the vanished coins. He consoled himself with the fact that the food supply for the fish would last for 3 to 5 months. Jessen suggested adding each other on the Star Network for direct communication, assuring him that she could get anything he wanted as long as he had the money. Lin Yuan handed her his card, replying that it would be an honor. He realized that direct orders for rare materials would be much more convenient. He said he would place another order later. Jessen guessed with a smile that he would need ore, butterfly shells, and a few fish. Lin Yuan confirmed, specifying that low-grade ore would suffice. Jessen was surprised, because only high-grade ore contained pure energy. Low-grade ore was only suitable for ordinary and elite ranks. She wondered how large his breeding base was. He probably had a whole factory. Realizing that retaining this customer would bring a stream of orders, the woman remembered the main highlight and true specialization of her store. Looking at Lin Yuan, she offered a special service for regular customers. Intrigued, the young man asked for more details. Jessie explained that in addition to buying fairies, they also supplied seriously injured but fresh and intact creatures, ideal for special materials. Lin Yuan's eyes lit up, and he asked about the next shipment. Jessen replied that it would arrive in 3 weeks, and promised to let him know. The young man figured that in 3 weeks, the funds would be turned around, giving him room to maneuver. He headed for the exit, but paused for a moment. He was surprised by the silence in such a nice store. Jessen asked if he had forgotten about the 100 sequence match on the Stairway of Radiance. It turned out that most people had gone to watch the spectacle. Lin Yuan asked if she was referring to the members of the Crimson 100. Jessen replied that the level above that was the Shining 100 of the Federation. Realizing the scale of the event, Lin Yuan was surprised. Then he left and said goodbye to Zhou. She nodded reminding him about the imminent delivery of goods. Checking his phone on the go, Lin Yuan was annoyed to find that the match had already started. Taking a ticket for the high platform, he decided not to miss the chance to see the Federation's strongest young martial artists. He wanted to understand how big the gap between them and Zhao Qi was. When Lin Yuan arrived, the place was packed, and the roar of the crowd could be heard from outside. Feeling tired from the climb, he muttered discontentedly, "Why are there still areas with regular stairs in the Star Network?" The match was already underway, and he was glad he had unlimited tickets to the top. Suddenly, he heard loud cheers of support for Lord White Devil and Lord Serrano. Lin Yuan wondered why some idiot fan was supporting both sides at once. His gaze fell on a girl watching the match through a telescope. She was enthusiastically shouting out the names of the fighters, predicting victory. Lin Yuan froze. He recognized her, remembering the boiled egg in Cloud Stream. Lowering her telescope, the girl saw Lin Yuan's face. Frightened, she called him uncle and noticed that he had a huge, fat face. Lin Yuan sighed and advised her to at least put down the telescope for now. The girl's attention shifted back to the match. Raising her binoculars, she spoke cheerfully. She declared that there were no rules against rooting for both sides. She didn't care who won. She would be happy either way, and asked if he understood that. Then the girl asked who he supported more. Lin Yuan hesitantly replied that, like her, he was rooting for both teams. Suddenly, she grabbed his hand. Calling the young man a dense forest, the girl was genuinely delighted with his good taste. The young man smiled and agreed that they were both excellent. However, he thought to himself that he couldn't admit that he didn't know either of the contestants. Realizing that she was holding Lin Yuan's hand, the girl froze for a moment. Then she abruptly pulled her hand away and began rubbing her palms together as if to clean them. Lin Yuan frowned, reminding her that she had grabbed his hand first. Ignoring this, the girl handed him something and said, "Here." She explained that since he was rooting for both sides, he couldn't miss any details of the battle. And just listening to the announcer wasn't enough. With these words, she gave him a pair of binoculars. The young man sincerely thanked her. Accepting the item, he thought that despite all her mischief, the girl had a kind heart. Lin Yuan began to watch the match through the binoculars. It seemed to him that the participants belonged to completely different types of combat professionals. Soon, his gaze focused on two specific beings. He wondered if these two plants were similar to healing-type spirit fairies. The girl nodded approvingly, praised his eyesight, and calling the young man by his nickname again, asked who he thought would win. Watching, he assumed that the participant with the higher rating had the advantage. He also added that all of their creatures were already gold-ranked. In the arena, the girl ordered the beast to strike with molten lava. The lava bear obeyed. Its massive paw was immediately covered with lava, and it attacked, filling the entire field with its liquid hellfire. On the other side stood a snow tree-like beast. The opponent calmly ordered the Kabisca tree to use the cold of the ice soul grass. The beast reacted instantly, unleashing a freezing attack. The announcer loudly described the joint actions of the snow tree and the icy grass into the microphone. The bear's mistress smiled at the strong defense. Promising to break it, she ordered the beast to use an explosive lunge to stop the snow tree. The lava bear lunged forward fiercely, causing explosions across the battlefield. Lin Yuan, watching closely, muttered about the intensity of the attack. The girl explained that Lady Shiranui was an assault-type fighter. Compared to the White Devil healer, she objectively had a better chance of winning. Lin Yuan objected that the White Devil's rank was still higher. Then the announcer's voice rang out, announcing Daisy White Devil in 18th place in the rankings. Soon, Daisy successfully healed the tree and subdued the lava bear. The announcer continued, introducing Anna Serrano, who was ranked 47th. Anna laughed sharply, acknowledging Daisy's strength. She did not expect that under such a fierce attack she would be able to find the strength to save both of her creatures. Anna warned that her attack was not just a single wave. The beasts clashed again. Under the onslaught of the bears, the snow tree only defended itself passively. The announcer dramatically asked if the scales were tipping in one direction. Anna continued to press, noting that the war of attrition had been going on for half an hour. She asked mockingly if the enemy's health was not regenerating. Lin Yuan wondered if the healer was weaker than the assault soldier, even with a high rank, coldly stating that the gap between 18th and 47th place was huge. Daisy immediately ordered her spirit to use cold. Her beast immediately created a solid ice barrier. Daisy continued the attack, ordering the ice grass to apply the seal of extreme cold. The technique worked, freezing the lava bears in place. Anna was amazed that her opponent had used such a powerful skill after a long battle. The announcer reported that the bears had been frozen. However, the announcer added that the condition of the snow tree and grass also left much to be desired. The girl carefully analyzed the situation aloud. She noted that the White Devil had interrupted Cyrano's fierce attack. But the seal would not last long. As soon as it wore off, Cyrano would finish her counterattack. Lin Yuan objected, saying that it was more complicated than that, because the White Devil was a healer. Then Daisy ordered the Butterfly of Rebirth to use the Wings of Rebirth. The Shining Butterfly's huge wings spread across the entire arena. Both of Daisy's beasts began to recover quickly, their strength growing as their wounds healed. The crowd erupted in cheers, amazed at the healing at the wave of a hand. The spectators discussed how, even before they had fully recovered, the beasts were already able to fight. Clenching her fists, Anna acknowledged Daisy's skill, but declared that she would win anyway. Her huge bear suddenly lunged at Daisy's smaller beast. The giant, platinum-ranked, flowing flame bear dominated with its level. Daisy narrowed her eyes, admitting that she had not expected such progress. But there was a but. Her staff suddenly opened up and a huge red butterfly of energy fluttered out of it. Soon, countless butterflies flew in and swirled around Daisy. Anna roared that no move she made could break this critical flame strike, which combined attack and defense. Anna stated that she had trained this powerful strike specifically to defeat Daisy. In response, Daisy calmly sent her swarm of butterflies forward. The butterflies instantly crashed right into the huge lava bear. The mighty beast let out a piercing scream and blood spurted from its mouth before collapsing heavily to the ground. Anna froze in disbelief. Her legs buckled, and she fell to her knees. The announcer loudly declared that the winner was White Devil Daisy. It was announced that Daisy had won, receiving a star of glory. Anna bitterly admitted that she had not expected the butterfly to evolve into a fantasy breed on gold. She conceded defeat fairly. Smiling gently, Daisy offered her hand to Anna and corrected her, noting that it was not a butterfly of rebirth at all. She explained that the spirit had evolved into a butterfly of disaster. Daisy then asked her friend to cheer up for the sake of the crowd watching them. The crowd literally exploded, chanting the names of both contestants. The girl jumped up and down excitedly, admiring Lady White Devil's coolness. She added that the defeated Cyrano was truly explosive. Lin Yuan watched in awe, amazed at the wonder of this fight. Comparing this match to Chu Shi's school fights, he considered them child's play. He wondered if this was the highest combat power of the youth of the Shining Federation. It was time for Cloudstream to say goodbye. Before leaving, she reminded Yuan not to forget about her web-spitting spiders. Yuan couldn't get over how terrifying this fantasy creature was. A gold-ranked healing-type spirit creature had actually overcome the difference in levels and defeated a platinum-ranked combat spirit creature. The rune in his hand was the key that allowed the spiritual being to evolve into a fantasy species. And by a lucky coincidence, it was best suited for healing spiritual beings. However, the only healing spirit he possessed at that moment was Lilia Luara. He understood that it was too early to worry about that. At that very moment, he suddenly heard Yin muttering some poetic nonsense. Yuan went to his room and asked what they were doing, since he could hear them clearly even from below. The couple was very frightened. The smart aleck immediately switched tabs and scolded Yuan for not knocking. Yuan didn't understand why he should knock on his own door. This only fueled his curiosity about what exactly they were hiding. Umnik was sweating profusely as he explained that Yin was just practicing singing, and he was helping her find the notes. Yuan told Smarty to make some space. He needed to look up some information. Yin whispered to Smarty, making sure Yuan hadn't noticed anything. Smarty replied that everything was fine, explaining that he had closed the computer quickly enough and that the account had been registered secretly so Yuan wouldn't find out. Yuan read about the requirements for upgrading a copper-ranked spirit creature to legendary quality. At a minimum, a C-ranked spirit key was required. Otherwise, he would have simply put the 2 web-spitting spiders up for auction online. They would have gone for a decent price anyway. At that moment, someone rang the doorbell, so Yuan went downstairs. It was Ostrich Logistics. Courier 457 delivered the goods Yuan had purchased on Star Network, right on schedule. The senior courier hurried his novice partner to carry the valuable items faster. The smart guy became curious. Yuan casually explained that all this was for the future development of the store. The girl was carrying several boxes, introducing herself as An Neng, but immediately corrected herself, saying that she was Courier Trainee 3451. Noticing that she was holding the boxes incorrectly and they were about to slip out, Yuan intervened and offered to carry them for her. The aquarium at the top suddenly tilted. The smart guy immediately rushed to catch it. He managed to catch the aquarium, but the water splashed right in his face. GG caught the cat itself. He hurriedly checked to see if the fish was still inside, but it was gone. Fortunately, Yin had already managed to catch it. The guys breathed a sigh of relief. The senior courier immediately reprimanded the intern for almost causing an accident. She sincerely apologized. Yuan waved it off, saying that everything was fine. Everyone slipped up sometimes. Meanwhile, Smarty was drooling as he stared at the fish. Seeing the mountain of boxes piled up in the store, Yin was amazed. Smart Guy asked if they were going to open a mining farm. Yuan explained that only by expanding could they increase their profits. He also couldn't help but notice how strong the new delivery girl was. Carrying 2,000 jin of energy ore into the room was no small feat. Yuan told them to go upstairs to play while he went into seclusion to cultivate. He also informed Smarty that all the materials from the knowledge chip had already been uploaded to his Star Network account, so he should hurry up and start studying. Smart Guy replied that he understood and grabbed some cookies before leaving. Yuan, meanwhile, activated the spirit lock space. Then it was time to level up the fish. An hour later, the fish no longer fit in the aquarium. Yuan realized that the amount of spirit ki spent on the transition from ordinary rank to elite was several times greater than what was required for the green vine. However, the return of spiritual power he received was about the same. Now it became clear why the spirit-consuming goldfish had a bad reputation as a creature that was very difficult to raise. He wondered how he could transfer the same amount of spiritual ki into the spirit castle space. 2 days later, the fish was transferred to a large spirit transformation pool where it could swim freely. Mebius was jealous, and no one bothered it. Yuan dumped even more energy ore into the pool, scolding Mebius for not helping. Over the past few days, Yuan had personally carried over 1,000 jin of ore. Mobius countered that he was still in a spiritual body state. Yuan finally reached his limit. The concentration of spiritual ki inside the spirit lock space was completely saturated. If Mebius wanted to increase it further, he would have to wait for the next level up. Mebius replied that as long as he could continue to evolve, the upper limit would continue to grow. At that moment, it was probably only about 5 times higher than in the outside world. Yuan watched as the spirit-absorbing goldfish continuously absorbed the spirit ki from the space. He had high hopes for it. It was destined to become the store's future signature product. However, it would be even better if it could awaken the dragon species bloodline. That was why he had specifically chosen the dragon eye breed. Mebius reminded him that this would require the blood of a dragon beast, which would be extremely expensive. Yuan agreed. The biggest problem at the moment was still money. The only solution was to quickly raise the level of spiritual beings and earn money from the price difference as soon as possible. He took out several boxes, prompting Mebius to ask what was inside them. Yuan revealed that they were web-spitting spiders. Sales of elite-grade green vines were going well, but he still needed products with more distinctive features. Mebius inquired why the spiders needed to be moved into the spirit castle space to increase their level. Yuan explained that the speed of spiritual ki transformation inside the spirit castle space was also 5 times faster than outside. With that, he set to work. The spider's quality was successfully upgraded to epic rank. Yuan breathed a sigh of relief. It took just over 2 hours to upgrade them to epic rank. Outside, it would have taken at least 10 hours. At that moment, he received a message on his phone. As expected, one spider was valued at 1.1 shining coins, while the other reached 1.3 shining coins. Encouraged, Yuan planned to put the remaining 2 up for auction as well. His immediate goal was simple: to earn his first small fortune. Mabius commented that Yuan was slowly turning into a stingy bargain hunter. Then another notification popped up. Yuan received a tip of 500 Federation coins from Lord Sun Ling, along with a message encouraging him to keep up the good work and continue his daily live streams. Yuan was confused. Since when could a store on Star Network receive donations? Then it dawned on him. He rushed upstairs where he could clearly hear Yin Yin singing. The main character threw open the door and demanded an explanation of what the two of them were doing. Both jumped in fright. The smart one hastily replied that they were studying. Yuan tried to approach the computer to verify this statement, but the couple blocked his way. His eyes widened when he discovered that they had become YouTubers. The chat was overflowing with praise for the beautiful voice. Many viewers were completely hooked on the song and searched for it on Star Network, only to realize that it was the original. They even sent donations. The chosen name for the streamer was Kui Yin Lo. Yuan shared his thought that if it weren't for the shared income and expense system, he would never have known that they had started their career behind his back. Yin Yin was very proud of this name. It was perfect for Yin Yin, who loved to eat green vines, and it was Umnik who came up with it. Yuan noticed how proud she was of herself. He became curious about how they chose the path of virtual streamers. She replied that Smarty had said it was the only way to stand out from the rest in the same niche. Yuan had to ask Smarty. Smarty replied that he was tired after several hours of daily study, so he might as well pass this time on to Yin Yin to use it wisely. Noticing that the account had been open for several days, and although there were quite a few comments, there were very few subscribers. And Yin Yin had loved singing since childhood. It was just a small hobby, so he simply let them have fun. He stopped being angry because he thought their plan to make effective use of their characteristics and hobbies was a good idea. He did not yet realize what a legend in the world of streaming Kui Yin Luo would become in the future. The couple was happy to finally get Yuan's permission, but he set a condition that they could not accept inappropriate donations. He set a limit of 500 Federation coins. He also wanted them to change direction and move into the category of visual voice actors. The two were so excited that Yin Yin put Umnik on her back and they ran away. Yuan commented that the children had grown up and stopped listening to him. Mabius commented that the pair were quite amusing. Yuan didn't want to talk about them at that moment because he was worried about how to get him to level up. The concentration of spiritual keys in space had also reached a bottleneck, but it still couldn't keep up with the consumption of the spiritual beings he was cultivating. The prerequisite for his advancement was to first cultivate other spiritual beings to a new level. Although he could speed up the process by transforming the spirit key, he was limited by his own professional rank of spirit key, so the efficiency was low. If he wanted to speed up the process, he needed Mabius's level to increase. It was simply a vicious circle. Mabius suggested focusing on high quality since it cost so much money, but that option was not viable. Only by improving the quality of a spiritual being could its level be revealed. He hoped that every spiritual being, without exception, would be able to realize its own value. If the spirit-absorbing golden dragon eye fish was going to advance, it needed at least 3 drops of dragon beast blood, and much more. With such requirements, he had to call Sister Shin. She answered his call, but was very surprised when she heard that he needed the blood of the dragon beast, because this thing was by no means cheap. But deep down, she was thrilled that her intuition had been right. He was truly worthy of the status of a regular customer, spending almost 5 shining coins on his first visit to the store. She told him the prices. The price of gold-ranked dragon beast blood was 80 shining coins, while platinum-ranked dragon beast blood cost 2,000 shining coins per drop. If he could take a large batch, she would give him a discount and guarantee that the product was not diluted. His silence made her wonder if he was still on the line. In fact, He was ready to cry because he couldn't afford it. He cleared his throat and clarified that he was just checking prices for now. In addition, he wanted to order 4,000 jinn of low-quality energy stones and 3 ordinary-grade spirit-absorbing goldfish. She could easily arrange this order for him. After the call, she did some calculations based on the rate of replenishment and assumed that he would need the dragon beast's blood by his next visit. She planned to be prepared now that she had such a good customer. 2 hours later, there were already more fish swimming in the pool. Mobius commented that the delivery was too fast. Yuan had just finished upgrading 5 web-spitting spiders to epic quality. But the money he had earned over the past few days had been reduced to only 0.4 shining coins again, and the spiritual key in space had been used up by more than half. He envied these goldfish living a carefree life. He began to feed them. The very first goldfish in the pool began to behave aggressively. Yuan was confused, as these fish originally lived in the same pool. The transformation pool was only bigger, and yet they started fighting. Mobius replied that he was too naive. He explained that it was natural selection, survival of the fittest. Evolution is, in essence, the most creative ability that nature endows living beings with. So, regardless of the type of spiritual being, they would not easily share the spiritual key that nourished them with other spiritual beings, even if they were former kin. Yuan knew that this was precisely why the strong became even stronger, and the weak found it so difficult to rise. Mobius was glad that he had seen the light, although he added that nature was also balanced. The more powerful an individual was, the more they had to understand coexistence and order. His calm mind temporarily eliminated the aggression of the spirit-consuming dragon-eyed goldfish, and, barring any accidents, he expected the other 3 to evolve to the elite rank in 5 days. Yuan entrusted this to him and added more ore. He checked his phone and was pleased to see that the green vines had sold out so quickly. Mobius had just finished upgrading several web spiders, so he decided to replenish his stock with them. Yuan realized it was time to make a delivery to the bald guy, so he left. He went to his online store and saw someone complaining, even though the store already indicated that the item was sold out. The girl complained that when she saw the monk, she let him go ahead of her in line to place his order, and he dared to buy everything. The monk simply replied that Buddha taught them not to steal. She became even angrier and grabbed him by the chest. The girl was furious that she had already helped him, and he still dared to lecture her. So she challenged him to meet her in person. Yuan yelled at them to stop arguing, or else take their fight outside his store. He put spitting spiders in the shop window. The girl and the monk were shocked. He could tell that this was the work of a 2-star creator. The girl couldn't believe it was of such epic quality. Yuan clarified that they were custom-made and not for sale. The monk was interested in the terms for a custom order. Gigi explained that he was temporarily not accepting custom orders this month and would resume this activity no earlier than next month. At the same time, the couple asked if he still had any elite-grade green vines left. Unfortunately, they were sold out, and he had no plans to sell any more. He presented them with his next items, which turned out to be copper-grade green vines and elite-grade, breathtaking goldfish. He opened pre-orders for them. The girl offered 5 shining coins for the copper-grade green vine. The monk bid 8 shining coins for the breathtaking goldfish. They both wanted the products reserved for them, so that no one else would take them. Considering their positions, Yuan realized that these 2 were used to making purchases without looking, while he even researched market prices. He warned them that if they started arguing again, they would both be blacklisted from the store. He had no idea that the 2 were actually working together, secretly. Yuan was completely exhausted. He realized that he needed to immediately establish store rules and post them in the most visible place. The scene changed. The monk said he would wait for good news from him, then turned and left. Seeing that the girl was still standing there, Yuan asked if she had any other business. He told her that he no longer had any spiritual beings for sale. She hesitated for a moment before asking if he could heal a spiritual being. This instantly piqued his interest. She explained that it was a spiritual being with a damaged foundation and serious injuries. Yuan said that if it was below the silver rank, he could try. The girl was overjoyed. She said that her daughter's spirit being could finally be saved. Yuan froze when he heard the word daughter. He couldn't quite believe it. She looked about the same age as his sister. Then she showed him the copper-ranked spirit beast that belonged to her daughter. During training near the spatial rift, its roots had been burned by a horned demon. This surprised Yuan. Horned demons possessed horned flames with scorching properties. If it struck a plant-type spirit beast, the damage would be devastating. Now he finally understood why the spirit beast's foundation had been so severely damaged. She thanked him profusely and asked about the cost. She admitted that she didn't have enough money right now, but promised that she would scrape together the necessary amount by next month. Yuan waved it off. He didn't have time this month anyway. He told her to bring the spirit creature back next month. As for payment, he didn't need money. What he wanted was something else. The soil of rebirth. She was stunned, unable to believe that this alone would be enough. Naturally, she agreed to the deal without hesitation. She promised to get it for him. If she succeeded, they could renegotiate the payment for the treatment. Yuan was genuinely surprised. Even Sister Shin couldn't get hold of the soil of rebirth, which meant that this woman definitely had connections. Thus, his problem with the soil of rebirth could be considered solved. The issue of spring water for the flora could be solved with money. All that remained was the heartwood of the red tree. He wondered if it could only be obtained through an auction in the treasure pavilion. Deciding not to think so far ahead, Yuan sent a message to Cloudstream, informing her that the web-spitting spiders were ready and that she should hurry. She appeared almost instantly. Yuan was shocked by her speed. She accused him of cheating. How could he have produced 5 epic-quality spiders in just a few days? Even she hadn't expected such speed from him. She assured him that she would immediately spin the transparent spider silk. After inspecting the goods and confirming their quality, she said she was extremely satisfied and told him to arrange delivery. Her enthusiasm was obvious. Yuan reminded her that one of the web-spitting spiders possessed a deadly venom and advised her to be careful with her hair. She immediately snapped back, shouting that she had not been stung on purpose and that her hair had already started to grow back. After the payment was transferred, she left. Yuan wondered why she was always so prickly, but at least he had capital again. It was time to expand production. He immediately placed orders for additional materials so that the cash flow would not dry up. The breathtaking goldfish with butterfly tails were also selling well, and he needed to replenish his supply of green vines. Noticing how Smarty's eyes were bulging, Yuan asked if he had strained them from studying too long. Smart Guy replied that no, there were just some concepts he didn't fully understand. He asked a question about the complexity of the evolution of spiritual beings. Yuan asked him to clarify what he meant. The Smart One explained that the evolution of spiritual beings was not always aimed solely at increasing survivability or combat abilities. If that were the case, spiritual beings would not have been able to sustain themselves during evolution. This theory was abstract and difficult to understand. Yuan tried to come up with a more concrete example, so he pointed to a green vine, something Smarty was very familiar with as he ate it every day. Yuan asked him to imagine that he was a green vine, and in what direction he would evolve to ensure his survival. Smart Guy replied that he would get rid of his leaves so that he would not be eaten, develop toxicity to avoid being accidentally eaten, and become extremely tough while requiring less water. Yuan, on the other hand, imagined a poisonous cactus. He then told the Smart Guy that this line of thinking was fundamentally flawed. The Smart Guy was shocked. He thought his logic was perfect for survival. Then Yuan showed him the evolved form of the green vine of the copper rank. The Smart Guy immediately realized how different it was from what he had imagined. It was fresh, juicy, and actually delicious. It looked as if it was begging to be eaten. Yuan explained that the evolutionary path of the green vine was equivalent to declaring to all spiritual beings that it could produce food, and very tasty food at that. As a result, other spiritual beings would protect it, cultivate it, and ensure its survival. That was how it secured its position in the ecosystem. The Smart Guy muttered that if he were in its place, he would still prefer to evolve into something completely inedible. The worse it tasted, the better. Yuan told him that too much studying had narrowed his thinking. That was why he couldn't understand it. So he suggested going for a walk. Yin Yin was delighted. Once outside, she said that it had been a long time since they had last gone out together. On a huge screen, they watched as the Shining Federation Creators Guild was about to reform the certification assessment system for creators. Lin Xiao announced that anyone who had passed the 1-star creator assessment within 2 hours could skip 3 advanced assessments for peaceful professions and directly challenge the 2-star creator exam. For Yuan, this was simply incredible news. It meant that he could directly aim for 2 stars. He silently promised himself that he would get this rank no matter what. Yin Yin also expressed her support. The next news segment was about the Federation. Recent studies showed that spatial rifts would enter an active period lasting 6 months, during which a wave of exotic beasts would appear. The Shining Federation was going on high alert. Citizens were advised to prepare in advance and not to panic. During the active period, the Federation was going to send spiritual guards to help repel the wave of exotic animals. Images of spiritual guards in full uniform flashed across the screen. Yuan suddenly remembered how, as a child, he had asked his parents where they were going. They told him to take good care of Shu, saying they were leaving for a short time and would be back by the time he woke up. But the next day, a wounded man came to tell him about his parents. Shui woke up and asked where her parents were. Yuan had to tell her that they would not be coming back. She burst into tears. Yuan hugged her and promised to take care of her. As he hugged his sister, he clutched his parents' badges tightly in his hands. Standing there frozen, Yuan did not notice Yin Yin and Smarty trying frantically to get his attention. He finally came to his senses, hugged them both, and assured them that he was fine. This was their cue to go home. Only then did it dawn on him. The badges his parents wore were symbols of spiritual guardians. Returning home late at night, Yuan immediately sat down at the computer and began searching for information. As he had suspected, the spatial rift that had opened on the outskirts of Sha County 10 years ago had indeed been eliminated by the spiritual guardians. He read several news reports. According to the data, a powerful source of energy had been discovered deep inside the rift. Lin Yuan looked through the news report. At 7 a.m., a 4th-ranked dragonfly wounded 30 defenders before it was suppressed. At 3 p.m., a 5th-rank silkworm with necromancy appeared. Soon, the Captain General arrived and sealed the rift. By 8 p.m., the creature was seriously wounded, but the land remained poisoned. There were no civilian casualties, but 120 people were injured, and 53 were missing. The rift would be sealed in 72 hours. The rot-boned silkworm seemed painfully familiar to him. He also deduced that the bone-devouring gangrene was a skill of mutual destruction, which the rotten bone silkworm could only activate by sacrificing itself, being pushed to its absolute limit. Putting all these pieces together, Yuan realized that Uncle Li was a member of the Spirit Guard, and he realized that his parents were also members of the Spirit Guard. His gaze slowly fell on the badges left by his parents. The south was lava, the north was bound by ice, the west was an endless desert, and the east was swallowed by swamps. The Shining Federation existed in the narrow rifts between these deadly zones. Countless spiritual beings roamed within and around its borders. The Spirit Guardians were a security organization responsible for eliminating disasters related to spiritual beings and invasions by exotic beasts. Yuan wondered if his parents had served in such a dangerous position. They had never mentioned it. He noticed barely discernible inscriptions on the badges. After he wiped away the dried blood, the number 2837 appeared. He wondered if it was their serial number in the ranks of the Spirit Guard. He tried to dig deeper into the network, but suddenly, a red exclamation mark flashed on the screen. He had encountered a restricted access level. Further searching the network was prohibited. He considered asking Aunt Zhang, but she was accompanying Uncle Li to a medical examination. They were old friends of his parents. Yuan suspected that they knew the truth. Judging by Uncle Li's injuries, he was probably a witness to those events, and perhaps was a spirit guardian himself. Suddenly, someone knocked on the front door. It was late at night. At first, Yuan thought Aunt Zhang had returned, but she would not have knocked like that. Shui had been preparing for the 100 Suns test lately, so she would not have come home. Or warned him. Even everyone involved in Star Network deals contacted him by phone. This made Yuan wary, and at the same time aroused his curiosity as to who it could be. The rhythm of the knocking changed, as if someone else had started knocking. The worst-case scenario flashed through his mind. His ability to improve and evolve spiritual beings had been revealed, and someone had come to kidnap him. Smarty and Yin Yin woke up and asked who was there. Smarty jokingly asked if Yuan had taken someone else's business. Yuan told him to stop talking nonsense. There was no chance that he had crossed someone. He quietly instructed Yin Yin that if he backed away after opening the door, no matter who came in, she should immediately release turbulence and a sonic spike right at the entrance. He opened the door slightly and asked who they were looking for. A man and a woman were standing outside. The man asked if he was the child of Lin Yuan and Chu Yan. Yuan asked if they knew his parents. The woman immediately took out a badge, clearly knowing that he would recognize it. She said softly that she hadn't expected him to grow up so much. She introduced herself. They were from the Spirit Guard. Her name was Su Jin, although she preferred to be called Aunt Su. The man next to her was named Dong Hai. He asked if Yuan had recently tried to access the Spirit Guard's internal database. That was how they had tracked him down. It all confirmed it. His parents were indeed members of the Spirit Guard. Dong Hai said it was a long story. The aftermath of that battle had been extremely chaotic. At the time, many Spirit Guards had been carrying out missions undercover, which had made subsequent investigations difficult. In the subsequent headquarters proceedings, there were still unresolved gaps. They apologized for coming so late. Then he handed Yuan a blood-stained piece of cloth. Yuan asked what it was. Dong Hai replied that it was intended for Yuan and Xiao's future. There were writings on the cloth. Yuan instantly recognized the handwriting. It was his mother's handwriting. Dong Hai explained that the missions of the Spirit Guardians were incredibly dangerous. That was why Aunt Zhang and Uncle Li had decided to hide the truth from him. All these years, they had silently accompanied and protected the brother and sister. He hoped that Yuan would not blame them. Rubbing his eyes, Yuan replied that he did not blame them. In any case, it was thanks to them that he and his sister were able to grow up safely. Dong Hai, who asked to be called Uncle Dong, also promised that he would always cover for him. If Yuan ever needed help, he could come to him. Aunt Su cleared her throat, reminding Uncle Dong of something important. And he did indeed reach into his pocket. This item had been exchanged for all the merits his parents had accumulated, as well as thanks to repeated requests from old Zhang and the others. Yuan asked what item they were talking about. Uncle Dong replied that it was the seed of the source. Yuan asked what that meant. Aunt Su explained that spatial rifts not only brought waves of exotic beasts, but also gave birth to various treasures known as source-type items. Only when a source-type item was extracted would the rift finally close. The seed of the source was one such item. It was a source-type treasure capable of sealing a second-level spatial rift. Uncle Dong thought that the origin seed was perfect for Yuan. He had heard from old Li that Yuan had had an accident during cultivation as a child, which left his body weak. Entering into contracts with spiritual beings consumed a lot of energy, but the origin seed only needed fresh blood to grow. It did not depend on mental strength or spiritual energy. The protagonist carefully examined the seed, and Aunt Su explained that a spiritual being could be grown from the original seed. Its abilities and path of development could be freely guided during cultivation. Due to Yuan's poor health, she suggested growing a healing-type spiritual being from it. This would greatly help his body in the future. The healing type also matched Yuan's current predisposition, but pure healing alone was not enough to survive in that world. Yuan knew that he still needed combat power, just like Daisy, also known as White. Aunt Su handed him a Federal Reserve bank card. It had 100 shining coins on it. She said it was a gift, as well as compensation that had been delayed for 10 years. Uncle Dong also gave him one, knowing that growing the original seed and paying for Yuan's sister's education would be expensive. He told Yuan to treat it as interest for the past 10 years. Yuan refused to take their money. He opened the door and said that there was always someone behind him. The smart guy jumped on his head, and Gigi said he had 2 wonderful families. Uncle Dong, who had lived at least 20 years longer than Yuan, gave him advice. He insisted that Yuan take the money. Aunt Sue noticed that Yuan had only recently recovered physically. She suggested that Smarty and Yin Yin were only at the elite level. His peers had already reached the bronze rank or higher, so it seemed that Yuan lacked real combat experience. She asked him if he wanted to learn more about his parents' work. In Sei Prefecture, there was a first-level spatial rift connected to the Spirit Beast realm. If Yuan wanted, she could take him with her to show him how the Spirit Suppression Division worked. Although it was only the first level, it still carried some risk. Before she could finish, Yuan said he wanted to go. He believed they already knew about his past condition. He had missed too much in this world, and with such an opportunity before him, he didn't want to miss it. Within 6 months, the spatial rift was supposed to become active. A wave of beasts was approaching, so it was wise to prepare in advance. Aunt Sue thought Yuan was promising. She believed he had talent. Uncle Dong quietly warned her that they should be careful. She nudged him with her elbow to silence him. She told him to clear out the insectoids while she stayed close to protect Yuan. She told Yuan to get ready because they were leaving immediately. Yuan checked the characteristics of her spirit beast. It was a fluffy snow owl from the family Strigidae, genus Leptoglottis. It was platinum rank, 8 out of 10, with wind and ice attributes. Yuan was shocked. A normal summon was already platinum rank and had so many skills. He assumed it was a defensive spirit beast. This truly lived up to the reputation of the Spirit Suppression Division. Yin Yin looked at the giant bird with awe and asked if she could become that strong one day. Yuan promised to train them with all his might. Smarty also wanted to go with them. Yuan asked Uncle Dong if he could take the 2 children with him. Uncle Dong agreed, as he was going to guard them anyway. Both of them were thrilled at the opportunity to ride such a large bird. Yin Yin liked that it felt like velvet to the touch. Gigi asked if she even knew what velvet felt like. Yin Yin replied that she didn't know, but that was how she imagined it would feel. Soon, they were flying through the sky. Finally, they arrived at a spatial rift. The military stopped them and said that unauthorized persons were not allowed to enter. Uncle Dong gave his full name and unit affiliation, then requested access to the restricted area to conduct a basic mop-up operation. After confirming his identity, they were allowed to enter. They flew forward. This area was already within the reach of the spatial rift. There were so many purple spike guards stationed there. Yuan promised himself to remain cautious. Suddenly, loud noises rang out around them. Yin Yin and Smarty pressed themselves tightly against Yuan. A spirit beast suddenly appeared behind them. This was not good. Uncle Dong punched it. Yuan watched in shock as Uncle Dong crushed the insectoid with one blow, using only the spiritual energy tempered in his body. At that moment, he truly realized the power of the Spirit Suppression Unit. Aunt Sue told him not to be nervous. Most of the insectoids were only elite level. Only a few had reached the bronze rank. Despite this, Yuan knew that elite-level enemies were already dangerous to him. Uncle Dong stepped forward in front of the group. He summoned his wolf-like spirit beast. He placed it right in the center of the battlefield. Yuan felt uneasy when he saw that the beast was surrounded on all sides. Uncle Dong told him not to rush. He said the beast needed a little time to prepare. Then he ordered the pack to begin hunting. The spirit beast was a shadow ghastly wolf from the Dark Fang clan's ghastly wolf lineage. It was a monarch-ranked beast, 10 out of 10, with outstanding quality. It had a bunch of skills. Yuan was deeply impressed. The skill set and traits were ideal for long battles with high explosive damage. Just watching the battle was worth the whole trip. In the blink of an eye, the enemies were destroyed. Uncle Dong told Yuan that it was completely safe. Yuan noticed that Yin Yin was acting strangely, so he asked her what was wrong. She said that someone was watching them. She was right. There was a crow nearby. Its eyes were red, its chest was torn open, and white bones were visible through it. Yuan still believed that the trip would not be dangerous. The smart guy felt relieved to hear this. Yin Yin suddenly jumped out of Yuan's arms and warned him to be careful. She said something was wrong. Yuan shouted for her to stop. It was then that he realized that Aunt Sue and Uncle Dong had disappeared. A strange feeling came over him. Looking again, he realized he was riding on the back of a terrifying giant crow. The scene changed, and there was another rift in front of them. Uncle Dong said he felt uneasy. Aunt Sue reminded him to stay alert, because it seemed that something was still waiting for them. He complained that she had jinxed him. She told Yuan to stay put while they dealt with the minor threats. She assured him that there was nothing to worry about. Her fluffy snow owl used its snow feather spike. Several spirit beasts were destroyed at once. Uncle Dong thought that this was the most dangerous situation they would encounter that day, but Aunt Sue felt that something was wrong. Yuan hadn't moved for a long time, so she told Uncle Dong to check on him. When Uncle Dong checked, Yuan's face looked normal and his breathing was steady. He told her that Yuan was just sleeping. In fact, Yuan's consciousness was falling into an abyss. Lin Yuan shouted at him to grab her, so he grabbed her little paws. The smart guy told her to hold on tight. She tried her best, but she couldn't hold on, and they all fell down. Yuan felt strange. It didn't feel like he was falling from a height. Instead, it felt as if the earth was welcoming him. Since he wasn't hurt at all, he wondered if maybe the enemy didn't want him dead. Someone's voice said he was right. It said that the creatures outside the rift controlled all the land and resources, while those inside had to fight and bleed just to survive. It was the crow. She offered him a bet. If the crow won, Yuan would have to stay there forever. Yuan was shocked that she could speak, but the crow didn't want to talk anymore. She was angry that they kept calling her an insectoid when she didn't even have the right to live peacefully outside the rift. The spirit beast summoned a group of wolves. Lin Yuan attacked with turbulence. She yelled at her to stay away from Yuan. Smarty Pants boasted that they also had a big bird and a big wolf on their side. At the mention of these spirit beasts, the crow created eerie copies of Aunt Sue and Uncle Dun. She used her power to bind Lin Yuan and Smarty. The wolves surrounded them as their powers slowly drained away. They shouted at Yuan to run. Yuan enveloped them in a golden aura and told them to calm their minds. Smarty was confused by what was happening. Yuan realized that everything around them was an illusion. Uncle Dun and Aunt Sue were not really there. They had disappeared because the crow could not pull them into the illusion. The crow was called the Lord of the Three Crows from the Crow family. It was an elite rank, second level, psychic type of ordinary quality. He was shocked that Yuan had figured him out. He never expected that a human child would be able to escape his power. This only made him more determined to kill the boy. The smart guy asked if the attacks were also illusions. Lin Yuan said they felt real. Yuan replied that the damage was real. The Lord of the Three Crows warned them that his next attack would not be fake. Yuan noted that his technique was almost a perfect copy of the skills of elite-class spirit beasts. Yuan ordered Lin Yuan to use turbulence to attack their legs. Then Smart Guy was to strike their faces when they opened up. He explained that they were illusory clones, so they should be weak. Lin Yuan followed his order. Smarty rushed forward and scratched them. To their shock, the clones were completely unharmed. Yuan told the Lord of the Three Crows that fighting this way was pointless, and that he would not be able to win. But the crow disagreed. Yuan was a human, and he had spirit beasts. He was an abnormal insect who had nothing. Suddenly, the crow raised its level within the illusion. It rushed at Yuan, shouting that battle brings satisfaction, destruction creates justice, and slaughter restores balance. It raged about how humans enjoyed food and clean air while creatures inside the rift killed each other just to survive. The wolf was about to bite Yuan. The original seed suddenly slipped out of his pocket. Lin Yuan and Smarty were also depressed. The crow believed that survival only led to pain, and destruction was the path to eternity. Suddenly, a golden light broke through the wolf. The crow froze in shock. What was happening? Yuan was unharmed. The original seed actively resisted the illusion. Yuan realized that the crow's power could strengthen the spiritual beasts nearby, but that same power could be turned against it. There were already beasts near him. He ordered Lin Yuan to strike at its weak spot and finish it off. They already knew where it was. They rushed forward. The crow's body was chopped to pieces. She looked disappointed, as if she had hoped her luck would change. But Yuan had won. Yuan saw the rune of slaughter inside her remains. He wondered if the true nature of exotic beasts lay in endless killing. After that, Uncle Dong woke him up by patting him on the shoulder and said they were going back. He asked if the flock of crows had frightened him. Yuan opened his eyes and replied that it had not. Uncle Dong told Aunt Sue that Yuan looked exhausted. Yuan asked Uncle Dong where he should train if he wanted to become stronger. Uncle Dong advised him to go to the Star Tower, the best place for real combat training. The scene changed. It was late at night. Smarty and Yin Yin were fast asleep. Yuan took the original seed out of the pot of kernels. He remembered what had happened inside the illusion. The seed changed only after it absorbed his blood. Now he knew what it would look like after evolving. And he also knew that blood was required to make a contract with it. So he cut his hand. He let the blood drip onto the seed and decided to take a chance, hoping that it would become a spiritual being with attacking power. He was shocked at how quickly it absorbed his blood. Suddenly, he heard a loud voice in his mind urging him to continue and not stop. Now they were mentally connected, and Yuan could feel the all-consuming hunger emanating from it. He had lost so much blood that his face had turned pale. He relied on Loira's lily to slow the bleeding. Eventually, it stopped. The seed had turned into a plant. He hadn't expected it to need so much blood. Since it was a plant, he thought it might have something like the mouth of a carnivorous plant, as it had in the illusion. What appeared before him was a strange humanoid plant. It had a rose-like flower instead of a head, and a wide grin full of sharp teeth. Yuan stared at it in amazement. It was exactly what he wanted. From that moment on, he called it Red Thorn. He tried to feed it a carrot, but it shook its head. He tried to give it a kernel, but it refused again. Yuan became nervous. He was afraid that it wanted more of his blood, and he knew he couldn't take it again. Smarty woke up and told him to get some sleep. Yuan replied that he was fine. He knew that Smarty and Yin Yin were exhausted after yesterday. Smart Guy noticed the plant and realized it was similar to the one from the illusion. Yuan introduced it as Red Thorn, their new companion. Smarty was delighted. He asked if it would be as strong as it had been then. Feeling a slight jealousy, he also asked if he himself would become stronger. Yuan warned him not to rush. Smart Guy was only at the elite rank for now. Once he reached the copper level, a serious change would occur, and he would enter a whole new level. Yin Yin woke up and asked what they were talking about. Yuan suggested that they all rest and recover for now, so that they could prepare for the breakthrough to the copper level. A week later, they gathered in the backyard. Yuan's body had recovered greatly. During the cultivation of the original seed, and his spiritual energy had also become purer. Breaking through to the copper level should no longer be a challenge. Golden energy enveloped Yin Yin. The Smart Guy watched with his mouth open. She had evolved into an azure bird of floating clouds from the blue sparrow family of the winged bird genus. She had reached the copper level, 1 of 10. Yuan felt confused. Normally, there should have been a songbird stage between her old form and this one. But Yin Yin had hardly changed at the elite rank, and her appearance remained the same. It seemed as if she had completely skipped one stage. Now it was time to choose her trait. The options were Oily Feathers, which reduced damage by covering her feathers with oil; Clear Sky, which dispersed clouds and cleared the sky after her song ended; and Borrowed Wind, which reduced stamina consumption during flight. In the end, he chose Clear Sky. The Smart Guy told Yin Yin that she now looked more graceful. Yin Yin was delighted. She said that now she could sing and dance at the same time during her live broadcasts. Smarty was inspired and declared that now it was his turn. Yuan told him not to rush. When the process began, Smarty looked uncomfortable. Yuan was about to suggest stopping, but Smarty insisted on continuing. Yuan finished as quickly as he could. Umnik's spiritual energy was very stable, so Yuan believed that there would be no problems. Suddenly, Smarty told him to wait. His nose was itching. When he sneezed, his appearance changed. Yuan was disappointed at how unremarkable this evolution looked. Yin Yin encouraged Smarty to check himself and brought a mirror. Smarty was delighted. He said that now he looked like a scientist. A choice of 3 features appeared. The first was protection from dust. The second was the shape of the object. And the third was the amplification of pain. Smart Guy suggested choosing the shape of the object. Yuan asked if he was sure. Umnik explained that he was not a combat-type spiritual being, so the other 2 options would be of little use to him in battle. Yuan thought that this explanation was brutally honest. Smarty rushed at him and threatened that if he turned into something useless, he would cut off his tail and end it all. Now he was at the copper level, 1 of 10. Yuan activated the item's form. The Smart Guy turned into a pair of glasses. The Smart Guy was disappointed. Yuan told him that they wouldn't know their true power until he put them on. Yuan put on the glasses. When he looked at Yin, information appeared. It showed that she was happy with her evolution. It also revealed her thoughts, such as how she wanted chestnuts and bread with meat strips from the neighboring street. There was even a reminder telling Yuan not to forget to clean her feathers. He was deeply impressed. Then he noticed something else. Red Thorn's thoughts contained only one thing: aberrant insects. Yuan realized that this was what Red Thorn wanted to eat. The scene changed abruptly. Sister Shin answered Yuan's call and told him that she had insect corpses and could give them to him for free. Even 100 would not be a problem. After the call, she fell into deep thought. This time, Yuan wasn't asking for spiritual materials. Instead, he needed insect corpses. This made her curious about what kind of breeding base he was building, and she began to think about giving him a little test. Yuan did not expect that she would actually have insects. It was Smarty who told him that she would have them. Soon, he received the delivery. He fed one of the insect corpses to Red Spike, but Red Spike swallowed everything in the bucket in one sitting. After eating, he began to glow. Yuan wondered if he was going to evolve. Red Thorn was a carnivorous plant from the Romanov family, Rafflesiaceae. Its skill was a ritual mouth that allowed it to secrete a huge amount of digestive fluid. The fluid was extremely corrosive and could quickly digest energy from food. He dumped the remaining contents of the bucket directly into his mouth. Yin complained that he had terrible manners. Smarty added that his saliva was also corrosive, which made him very dangerous. Yuan assured them that he was only behaving this way because he was starving, so there was nothing to worry about. Yuan realized that his appetite was frightening. The 300 corpses he had bought would last a maximum of 3 days, especially with the addition of dragon beast blood. He began to wonder if the cash flow from his small online store would be able to keep up. When he checked his balance, he had 398.2 shining coins. It was a huge amount. He noticed that the spirit-absorbing goldfish and green vines of the copper rank were selling surprisingly well. He needed to restock again. A new message arrived from Cloudstream. She complained that she couldn't find a single transparent web and demanded that he send her 5 more as soon as possible. She transferred the money immediately after that. Yuan commented that she was terribly unlucky. Because of her order, he now had to replenish his stock of web-spreading spiders. Yin and Smarty eavesdropped on him and immediately demanded that he take them with him. Yuan asked why, since he was just going to pick up the goods. Yin explained that ever since they returned from the spatial rift, they had wanted to find out how strong they really were. Smarty added that they didn't want to be helpless again if they encountered exotic insects. Yuan joked that if that was the case, then if Sha County suddenly faced a crisis next time, they would become shining heroes. Yin was delighted, saying that this would make them one of a kind in the Federation. Smart Guy, however, said that this was not the case. He then told them a story. 2 years ago, in the city of Frost of the Shining Federation, a member of the Shining 100 sequence, ranked 39th, single-handedly faced a third-class spatial rift. He single-handedly held back a wave of insects for 30 minutes, preventing Frost City from turning into a living hell. Yuan was impressed that Smarty even knew about such a thing. Smarty said he read old news articles when he got tired of studying. Yin asked what happened to that member of the 100 sequence afterwards. Meanwhile, inside the store, One of the employees argued with the boss about whether it was worth placing hope in a store that had suddenly appeared out of nowhere. Sister Shin asked if they had any complaints about her sales strategy. The staff complained that she had spent a huge amount of money on buying dragon beast blood, and was now buying up insect corpses in bulk. The buyer, she claimed, was just a recently opened store in the Star Network. They thought this was unreasonable. They were worried that if she was deceived, they would not even be able to pay their salaries the following month. At that moment, Yuan entered and noticed that they were having a lively discussion. He asked if he had come at an inconvenient time, as it seemed that they were arguing. Sister Shin smiled and said that it was just a regular meeting to plan the main products for the next quarter, and everyone was just sharing their opinions. Yuan didn't ask any further questions. He told her that he wanted to buy 3,000 insect carcasses, and a whole bunch of other stuff. Tens of thousands of each item. He paid for everything in advance. The staff turned pale when they heard the size of the order and the advance payment. Sister Shin asked why they were still standing around doing nothing. She introduced Yuan as a partner in their new store and told them to provide him with VIP service. The employees immediately became enthusiastic and helped him with everything. Sister Shin already guessed that he would replenish the stock of ordinary spirit-absorbing goldfish, but she believed that he would also be interested in something special. She brought out a pregnant, elite, spirit-absorbing goldfish mother, ranch of 5 fortunes. Yuan was stunned. A spirit-absorbing goldfish could produce more than 1,000 offspring in a single pregnancy. Normally, without sufficient spiritual energy, most of the eggs would not survive. But inside the spiritual pond of the spiritual castle's spatial zone, survival would not be a problem at all. In addition to this, Ranch 5 Fortunes was extremely popular. Yuan took it without hesitation. He also asked for the dragon beast blood he had ordered earlier. Sister Shin smiled, pleased that her guess had been correct. She suspected that a creation master was behind Yuan's shop. Anyone capable of dealing with the pregnant 5 Fortunes ranch had to be at least a 2-star creation master or higher. The prices were quickly settled. It came to a lot. After completing the transaction, Yuan left. The employees personally saw him off, now fully aware that they had underestimated Sister Shin's connections. The smart guy asked where they were going next. Yuan asked if they still wanted to test their strength. If so, they could go to the Star Tower that Uncle Dong had mentioned. The Star Tower was one of the most unique structures in the Star Network. It offered training, simulated battles, and ranked matches. It also hosted many combat-type competitions and was known as a paradise for combat-oriented spiritual beings. Smarty stared at the towering structure. Players could only climb 1 floor for each victory, and they had to fight at least once a month. He had heard that a promotion match was held on the 100th floor. Passing it would allow them to enter the ranking table and become Hall of Fame level players. Yuan told him he was getting ahead of himself. Reaching the 100th floor on their first try was impossible. Yuan informed the staff that he was registering for the first time. The employee didn't even look up. Reading his book, he told Yuan to fill out the form himself and said they would enter the information later. He warned Yuan not to bother him, as the Master of Creation exam was about to take place. The smart guy frowned at the lack of hospitality, but Yuan understood. With the exam approaching, everyone was under pressure. The form was successfully submitted. Yuan was told to stand still until the scanning was complete. The results showed all spirits, and the records, matches, wins, losses, and highest floor were at 0. The employee was surprised by Yuan's spiritual beasts. He couldn't even recognize some of them. The smart guy commented that he seemed to be the only one who had aged over the years. Initially, Yuan wanted Lilia to participate in the competition, but the release of the spatial zone of the spiritual castle of Mobius was technically part of his own ability. Yin Yuan asked how many floors they had to reach to face opponents of the Shining 100 sequence level. Yuan told her not to be so ambitious. She said she was just curious. The employee replied that it had to be at least above the 100th floor. He added that there had been several unusual incidents over the past 2 days, so it would be better not to encounter these people during their first visit to the Star Tower. Yuan wondered if that meant there was a chance to challenge strong opponents early on. Yin Yin was already looking forward to it. They entered the player preparation room. Inside, they could even adjust the battlefield and weather conditions. The selection of opponents was to be based on their first battle. Their first opponent turned out to be a battle-hardened veteran with 471 matches under his belt. Yin Yin asked if that meant he was strong. Yuan thought probably not, since his highest floor was only the third. This meant that he was most likely crushed in every match. The battlefield was open meadows in the morning. The weather was sunny without any special mechanisms. Yuan decided to release Smarty first. His exaggerated gestures made Smarty complain that Yuan watched too many cartoons. The old man on the other side looked as if he could barely stand on his feet. He was happy to come across a newcomer. If he won this match, he wouldn't have to fight again until the end of the month. Smart Guy tried to switch places with Yin Yin, but Yuan whispered to him to just get it over with. The old man warned them not to underestimate the connection between him and his gray-shelled beetle. He ordered him to use the little beetle. Yuan was about to command Smarty to use his skill, but Smarty had already made his move. He simply stepped on it. The old man cried out, accusing the young people of heartlessness. He said he had raised him with care, and now he had to bury his own child. Smart Guy replied that this was precisely why he had wanted to switch places earlier. Yuan quickly tried to calm the old man down, explaining that spiritual beings did not actually take damage inside the star network. Despite this, Yuan felt disappointed. The match turned out to be of a much lower level than he had imagined. The system generated the next arena. It was nighttime in a ruined city. A man released his yellow-spotted dog and ordered it to pick up the scent so that the enemy could not escape. At the same time, he commanded the fanged boar to use its fangs, aiming directly at the enemy's weak spot. Yuan calmly instructed Yin Yin to use her piercing sound. Yin Yin struck both spirit beasts at the same time. The man cried out in confusion, wondering where a copper-ranked spirit beast had come from on this floor. Yuan could only smile guiltily in response. While Yuan was being teleported to another area, he replayed the man's words in his head. Even after arriving on that floor, he still didn't fully understand what the man meant. Yuan wanted Smarty to join the next match, but Smarty refused. He felt deeply disappointed. For more than 10 matches in a row, Smarty hadn't been able to do anything before the fights ended. Yuan tried to comfort him, saying that eventually they would meet an opponent of equal strength. Then he checked the information about the opponent on the next floor. It turned out to be 27-year-old Huang Chenglin, a power-type Reiki professional. He had 3 copper-ranked spirit creatures, a poisonous fire python, an acid mist python, and a swamp python. He openly displayed their characteristics, clearly being absolutely confident in his abilities. This instantly delighted Smarty and Yin Yin. Finally, he had a chance to show what he was capable of. They entered the arena. The beasts were once again upon the man. Chenglin looked surprised to see Yuan's appearance. He assumed that the newcomer would have given up and retreated by this time. After checking Yuan's profile, he thought he might be an expert, until he saw that Yuan had only brought a cat and a bird with him. He asked mockingly if they had come here on a tour. This confused our main character, and even his pets. Worse still, Yuan was a healing-type professional. Chenglin smirked, noting that the bird might as well have built a nest on the battlefield so that people could eat the eggs and regain their strength. Yuan felt his patience snap. He told Chenglin that he was talking too much, and added that he was ready to start at any moment. Chenglin laughed, remarking that he had not expected to meet a novice who was so eager to lose. He declared that he had not come here to play mother and child with a novice, and was going to end the fight using only half his strength. As Yuan suspected, the contractor's mental state directly affected his spiritual beings. Chenglin's relaxed attitude made his snakes sluggish and careless. Yuan ordered Yin Yin to use the sound-piercing technique again, aiming at the stomachs of all 3 snakes. She rushed past them and dropped her sharp feathers. To Yuan's surprise, one of the snakes blocked the attack by spraying acid mist. Chenglin smirked and said he would be much more cautious if that little cat joined the battle. But since the cat had turned into glasses, he did not take the bird's attack seriously. Yuan shouted back, telling him not to underestimate them. He ordered Yin Yin to rush straight ahead and strike the acid mist python in the nose. Cheng Lin decided that Yuan was simply rushing to his death. He casually ordered the poisonous fire python to release a stream of flame, adding that Yuan should be grateful that they were in the star net. Otherwise, this little bird would not even have a grave left. Yuan replied that there was no need to worry about that. He ordered Mebius to open the spatial zone of the spiritual castle. The flames caught up with Yin Yin. Cheng Lin opened his eyes wide when he saw Yin Yin, instead of retreating, crash straight into one of his snakes. Yuan advised him to stop holding back, because he himself was going to give it his all. He took out Lily and activated her healing skill. Cheng Lin gave him a cold stare and warned him coldly not to blame him later for being ruthless. The blue snake lunged forward. Yuan shouted at Yin Yin to dodge. The snake released a blue breath, forcing Yin Yin to retreat desperately. Yuan instantly realized the problem. It was a battle of 1 against 3. Yin Yin was alone on the field, and the pace of the battle was too fast. Even the healing spiritual key would not last long. The smart guy suddenly spoke up, reporting that the analysis of the components of the poisonous fire and acid mist python's aerosols had been successfully completed. He even understood the principles of how they worked. They finally had a way to strike back. Yuan immediately ordered Yin Yin to strike the poisonous fire python in the eyes. They were going to take out one of them first. While the green snake released mist in her direction, Yin Yin flew straight at the red snake. Cheng Lin dismissed this as a useless trick. He ordered the poisonous fire python to intensify its flames, while the acid mist python cut off her escape route. Yin Yin found herself trapped between the two snakes, but Yuan seized the opportunity and commanded Yin Yin to use turbulence. Yin Yin flapped her wings furiously, pushing back both the fire and the mist. The stream of flames rushed toward the green snake. When it mixed with the surrounding fog, it caused a powerful explosion. The green snake was instantly roasted alive. Cheng Lin clicked his tongue in annoyance and cursed her for being useless. Yuan praised Yin Yin, finally realizing that real combat required strategy, not brute force. A bitter memory flashed through Cheng Lin's mind. Once upon a time, he had been thrown out and told to give up his dream of becoming a vassal of the Cheng family. His only value was to sit in the Star Tower, tracking down minor figures who might one day threaten the young master. Panic overwhelmed him. He simply could not afford to lose here.